At this moment in Langton, the sound of gossip grew more and more lively. Have you heard? The wealthy O family is looking for a husband, and they're offering an enormous sum of money. At that moment, a man snorted softly and said, "Who would dare marry Ong Gwyn Bao, that unlucky husband-killing jinx? No matter how much money there is, you'd still need to stay alive to spend it first." The eldest miss of the O family's reputation for bringing death to husbands was something everyone in Langton knew well. The first man who came to propose marriage was a frail young master who soon fell gravely ill and died. One dead, the O family then arranged another match for their young lady. And although the other party was healthy, he suddenly shaved his head and became a monk for mysterious reasons. Two dead. The third man, right after proposing marriage, fell from his horse and broke his leg. They believed the two were incompatible, so they hurriedly broke off the engagement with the O family. Three dead. The last one was someone who personally came to propose. Not long after the engagement was settled, his father's crime of corruption was exposed, and his entire family was confiscated and executed. Not a single one survived. That only made Ong Gwyn Bao's fearsome husband-killing reputation seem even more real. Beautiful and born to an illustrious family, yet burdened with a stubborn fate that doomed husbands. Not a single young master dared come to propose anymore. But if I could taste a beauty like that, I'd be willing to be a romantic ghost. Haha, but the murderous aura around her is way too heavy. Yet the moment those vulgar words left their mouths, there was suddenly a crack. The cup in someone's hand was crushed into pieces. The killing intent in the eyes of the man at the next table made the two gossips tremble in fear. What's going on? Suddenly, the man spoke calmly. "Shopkeeper." This cup suddenly cracked. But when they saw his gentle, smiling face, they could hardly believe their own eyes. "What had just happened? I didn't see anything at all." Hearing that, the innkeeper hurried out. "My apologies, sir. Were you hurt? I'm Fina. Just be more careful in the future, shopkeeper." Seeing this, the two men sipped their tea and muttered under their breath, "Who exactly is that guy?" He suddenly slung his basket over his shoulder, then patted one of them on the shoulder and asked meaningfully, "You two young masters really shouldn't gossip about others behind their backs. Otherwise, after you die, the underworld messengers will rip out your tongues with iron tongs." Then he asked, "By the way, do either of you know where I can meet the eldest miss of the O family?" "Every day." The man who had just been patted on the shoulder hurriedly covered his mouth and nodded frantically, while the other one quickly pointed out the way. Ong Gwyn Bao, the treasured pearl in the O family's palm, had been born with fair skin and breathtaking beauty. Yet at this moment, with one foot planted on a chair, she shouted boldly, "10 taels of gold on big. Open it." The sight made the manager beside her break out in cold sweat. "Miss, how about stopping here for today?" Hearing that, she angrily snapped, "What nonsense are you talking about? I'm not ready to go back yet." Then someone suddenly asked in puzzlement, "And why don't you want to return home?" Hearing that, she frowned and replied, "That old man nags me every single day. It's so annoying." But then she froze in shock. "So I'm that much of an eyesore in your heart?" O Fu Hong, a commercial prodigy, was the only imperial merchant personally bestowed a title of duke by the late emperor. Seeing this, she panicked. "I was once a king, but then my grandpa showed up." As she spoke, Ong Gwyn Bao quickly ran out. "Grandfather, why are you here?" Seeing that, he teased, "Didn't you say this old man was annoying and that you couldn't stand me?" Hearing that, she immediately tried to coax him. "Then just pretend you never heard that nonsense. Okay, let's go back home." But the man beside them refused to let it go. "What nonsense? You're already an 18-year-old young lady. Girls your age already have children old enough to go buy soy sauce." At that, she puffed out her cheeks in grievance. Ew. Then muttered softly, "Here we go again." Then O Fu Hong suddenly said, "Rather than let you go on muddle-headed like this, why don't I just grab someone at random today and marry you off already?" As he said that, he pointed at the men inside the gambling house. The men, they were struck dumb with shock. After their brains finally caught up, the men in the gambling den panicked and fled for their lives. The eldest Miss O is choosing a husband. In just a few seconds, not a single person was left in the whole gambling house. Ong Gwyn Bao said helplessly in frustration, "Look, everyone's already run away. Stop wasting your effort." Suddenly, O Fu Hong pointed behind her and said excitedly, like he had found a savior, "Who says that? Isn't there still one person left?" She turned to look in the direction he was pointing, and the person being pointed at stood there blankly in confusion. Huh? That face struck straight into her heart like a light slash. Oh my, the little fairy in her heart instantly started jumping up and down in excitement. This man was rather handsome. Miss, would you like to consider him? But then another little voice in her head strongly objected. Don't be bewitched by his looks. I have to stay calm. Didn't I say I'd never marry in this lifetime? The little fairy inside her wailed and refused to listen. She quickly snapped back to reality, but Oh Fu Hong had already decisively stepped forward. Young sir, may I ask your name? Have you married before? Hearing that, she panicked and hurriedly called out, Grandfather, grandfather. The man bowed politely and said, My surname is Fo, given name Duc. I have never married. At that moment, the person behind him quickly stepped forward and whispered anxiously, Grandfather, please don't embarrass us like this. Let's talk after we get home. Then, regardless of whether the man beside her agreed or not, she immediately dragged him away. Fo Duc, standing behind them, waved goodbye. Watching that retreating figure disappear, he muttered resentfully, Sure enough, with just a face like this, I still can't catch little Nguyen Bao's eye. Meanwhile, from a small courtyard came a shrill scream. What? Your illegitimate son? At that moment, Oh Fu Hong led in a handsome man. He was Oh Can, the long-lost son of Oh Fu Hong, who had just been dramatically found and brought back. Nguyen Bao shouted furiously, You actually dragged out a bastard child about my age? Why you shameless old man. At that moment, Oh Can suddenly spoke in a steady voice. Is this how the eldest granddaughter usually speaks to her elders? It seems your upbringing has truly been neglected. Hearing that, she exploded with anger. You're just some illegitimate nobody of unknown origin, and you dare lecture me? The man opposite her only replied lightly, With such a stubborn temper, I'm afraid it'll be hard for you to get married. Those mocking words made her nearly smoke with rage. You thump. Suddenly the sound of a cane striking the floor cut in. Ahem, no more arguing. Listen to me. I will assign each of you one trading shop. At the end of the year, we'll compare profits. The winner will inherit the entire family fortune. The loser will leave the residence with nothing. Hearing that, she irritably pointed at the man beside her and said, You want me to compete with this nameless bastard of unknown origin? I refuse. Hearing that, he challenged her bluntly. Of course, you can also choose to get married. Grandfather will prepare an extremely generous dowry for you. Standing beside him, Okan added fuel to the fire. The eldest granddaughter really should start considering marriage. At that moment, her face darkened instantly. Don't think you can use this trick to force me into marriage. I choose to compete. But right after saying it, she thought in alarm, Oh no, did that old fox trick me? Outside the O residence, she and her personal maid were shoved out. Starting from scratch meant leaving the residence with absolutely nothing. Walking down the street, Nguyen Bao grumbled in annoyance. Isn't it just making money? You think that can stump me? The person beside her was Nguyen Bao's loyal maid, the not at all cute Dain Chu man. But suddenly, the person in front of them stopped short. Wait, her eyes filled with confusion and suspicion. Could it really be this place? In front of her was a small shop surrounded by a chaotic crowd pushing and shoving. Seeing that, she forced an awkward smile. I don't think now is a good time to go in. The people that were holding papers and shouting nonstop, Pay up, pay up. Suddenly, a figure pushed his way out from the middle of the crowd. When he saw her about to run, he pointed straight at her and said, If you want money, go find eldest Miss O over there. This fabric shop belongs to her now. At that moment, Okan, Oh Fu Hong's illegitimate son, appeared. The instant she saw him, she irritably thought, Why is this guy like a ghost that won't go away? Oh no, I've been set up by him. At the same time, everyone else turned to look at her. Okan calmly left, ignoring the person behind him who was grinding her teeth in fury, while the people facing her angrily said, So it was you. Pay up now. Nguyen Bao shouted loudly, Get back here. But the other man merely flicked open a fan with large words written on it that taunted her. No need to thank me. After a moment, she suddenly remembered something. Right, man. But Dain Chu Man had already quickly backed away, gesturing toward her as she cleanly shirked responsibility. This has nothing to do with me. Please see her. The scene made her heart ache bitterly. Was this the most fake master-servant bond in the world? At that moment, the crowd pressed and even more aggressively. Miso, miso, miso. My goods payment has already been delayed for 3 months. 3 months? Mine's been delayed for half a year. My amount is small, so pay me first. Hearing all this, She clutched her head and screamed inwardly in resentment. There's no way the O family could possibly own such a terrible fabric shop. Did that rotten old man buy this place on purpose just to sabotage me? At that same moment, O Fu Hong sneezed somewhere else. Suddenly, another voice rang out clearly. Everyone, please hear me out. Just look at the jewelry Miss O is wearing. Fo Duk appeared unexpectedly, as if he had sprung up from the ground. Hearing his words, the woman in front of him panicked and touched her jewelry. Hairpin, 100 taels. Necklace, 200 taels. The other's eyes immediately sparkled with greed. The person behind them saw this, and her eyes lit up with satisfaction. She then stepped forward and added, "That's right. Wen bao, ho good. So if anyone is in a hurry to get paid, hand me your IOU." But the people opposite her immediately grew fearful and started backing away. Actually, I'm not owed that much. Same here. Ongwin Bao turned to the man beside her. "Many thanks, sir." Fo Duk bowed politely and replied, "It was just a small matter, nothing worth mentioning." After observing him carefully for a moment, she cried out in surprise, "It's you? What was your name again?" "Money." The man in front of her said helplessly, "Not money. It's Fo Duk." Hearing that, she innocently replied, "Aren't those basically the same thing? Why are you here? Did my old grandpa tell you to come?" Seeing her suspicion, he hurriedly explained, "Miss O, you misunderstand." But before he could finish, his body swayed unsteadily. "Hey, what are you doing?" At that moment, he fainted and collapsed against her. Dying Chu Man quickly came over and took his pulse. He probably fainted from hunger. Hearing that, she frowned and said in displeasure, "Help me support him then." But she had no idea that he had secretly curled his lips into a smug smile. At that moment, the man standing beside Ongwin Bao smiled ingratiatingly. He, Mississippi. He was a manager of the Prosperity Fabric Shop. The shop itself was in terrible condition. A few torn scraps of cloth hung, tattered inside, while outside, debt piled upon debt without end. Nguyen Bao nearly lost her mind. The sight gave her a splitting headache. This wasn't just on the verge of bankruptcy. It was completely beyond saving. She quickly reached toward the shelf. "First, let me see how much fabric is left." Suddenly, a scream rang out. "Miss, be careful." At the same time, a rat darted out. "Squeak, yeah." Her scream echoed throughout the entire shop. After a long while, a cup of hot tea was placed on the table. "So what exactly is the current state of this fabric shop of yours?" The manager standing nearby said with a smile, "It's your fabric shop now. The situation is exactly as you can see. It owes many large and small debts. All the workers already left, and before leaving, they even took goods as payment for their wages." Hearing this, the person opposite him asked in confusion, "And you can still smile so happily?" The man beside her replied, "There's a saying, if you greet people with a smile, business can't fail." At that moment, she thought to herself, just how much did you use to hate smiling for the business to turn out this disastrously? Then, too exhausted to care, she raised her hand and said, "Fine, let me look at the account books instead." Hearing that, Dying Chu Man replied, "Yes, Mississippi." Thud. A mountain-like stack of account books followed. The sight left Ongwin Bao bewildered, her smile freezing in place. This business was hopeless. "I'm tired. Let's just shut it down." Hearing that, the maid bowed and said, "Yes, I'll go admit defeat to Okan on your behalf, so the old master can arrange your marriage." Seeing her about to leave, Ongwin Bao hurriedly lunged forward, hugged her leg, and wailed, "Man, I was wrong. I'll read them right now." Then she quickly tied a headband with the words "make money" across her forehead, secretly stealing her resolve. How could I possibly lose to that petty villain Okan? How could I let that old master be smug? I'm definitely going to make money. She then rapidly moved her hand over the abacus. But after only a short while, she had already slumped face down on the table, looking like half her soul had left her body. Even if reading account books wasn't hard, with this many, how long would it take? Suddenly, Dying Chu Mana's voice rang out. "Mississippi." The sound startled the person inside. She quickly sat upright and picked up the account book upside down. At the same time, the voice outside said, "The young master you saved has woken up. He's come to thank you." Fo Duk came in and bowed. "My name is Fo Duk. Many thanks to Miss O for saving me." At that moment, she let out a quiet sigh of relief and sighed. "So he wasn't here to catch me slacking off. Thank goodness." Then she gave a light cough. "No need to thank me. You may go." I won't see you out. Hearing this, he spoke up. To tell the truth, I am a scholar preparing to take the imperial examination. But on the road, I encountered bandits, and all my luggage and money were stolen. As he spoke, he stepped toward her. This movement frightened the woman before him. Don't come any closer. I don't have money to give you. Seeing that, he said, I heard Misso needs to hire staff. I'm very cheap. As long as food and lodging are provided, that's enough. Ongwin Bao waved her hand and replied, What use do I have for a poor scholar who can't carry with his shoulders or lift with his hands? Go on leave. Suddenly, he snatched the account book from her hand. Then he said confidently, Then let me prove myself to Miss O. As soon as he finished speaking, he began calculating swiftly and smoothly. The person beside him stared in confusion. Oh, that's the shop's account book. Could this be the legendary human abacus, calculating entirely by hand? In no time at all, Fo Duk finished and turned back to say, Misso must have seen clearly now. There are many errors in these accounts. This volume alone is short by 137 taels, 6 mace, and 3 candarines. Hearing that, she gave an awkward smile and thought to herself, Ha ha ha, thanks for thinking so highly of me. If I were really that quick-witted. Wait, he really is a talent, and I was just bad-mouthing him a moment ago. A young lady must know when to bend and when to stand tall. Pride alone won't do. What is pride, anyway? Is it more important than being able to slack off? What should I do? While the person behind him was waging an inner battle, the man glanced toward the shop across the street instead. It seems Misso is not satisfied with me. I wonder if the new shop opposite is hiring. Hearing that, she suddenly remembered. Opposite? Wasn't that old ancestor Okan's shop? At that, she rushed forward and grabbed his hand tightly. Starting today, you are the accountant of the Fortune Fabric Shop. Food and lodging included. Working from 9 in the morning to 1 at night. 6 days on and 1 day off. But he immediately pulled his hand back. Hold on. Food and lodging is the rate for ordinary employees. If I'm doing the accounting, the pay has to go up. Hearing that, she asked, puzzled though, You want more? How much more? He smiled brightly and suggested 10% of the dividends. She cried out at once, 10%? Why don't you just rob me outright? But before she finished, she suddenly fell silent and thought, wait, dividends? I probably won't have any profits for quite a while. As long as I don't make money, he won't get any dividends. Then she quickly smiled and replied, 10% it is. No problem. I'll write up the contract for you right away. After a while, they pressed their fingerprints onto it. Then she carried the contract outside and waved her hand as she said, All right, get to work. Start by repainting the walls for me. Don't think being handsome means you can gouge your boss however you want. Seeing this, Fo Duk stood there blankly for a moment, then slowly revealed a deeply calculating smile. Nguyen Bao, how can you be this interesting? He stared at the contract, then let his gaze drift to his own name, marked with a bright red fingerprint. At that moment, the shopkeeper came forward obsequiously. I heard you calling for me, eldest Mississippi. You summoned me? Haha. Hearing that, Ongwin Bao held a leather whip in her hand, one leg propped on the table, radiating authority. Shopkeeper, since you're so clever, you must already know why I called you here, don't you? The man opposite her immediately became flustered. Why, yes, I know. The accounts are suffering heavy losses. It's all because I managed the business poorly. Before he could finish, she flung the account book toward him and shouted, And you still dare put on an act in front of me? At that, he quickly lowered his head. As the account book rolled across the floor, she spoke in an angry, icy voice. You dared falsify the accounts to deceive me. Do you think my looks came at the cost of my brains? Hearing that, he trembled in fear and said, Falsified accounts? I know nothing about that. Eldest miss, there must be some misunderstanding. His excuses only made her erupt even more. Tightening her grip on the whip, she spoke in a chilling voice like a little demon. My wicked reputation, Ongwin Bao's, is known far and wide. Surely you don't want to test my methods, do you? At that, the shopkeeper grew so frightened his legs started shaking, and he quickly dropped to his knees. I'll talk. Actually, it was old Master Ohu told me to do it. He said eldest Miss has been spoiled and arrogant for too long and needs her temper polished. If there are no difficulties, then create some. Hearing that, her hands clenched until they turned pale, and she ground her teeth in anger. That rotten old man is really vicious. He can even scheme against his own granddaughter without mercy. Over here, a pair of scissors sliced a leaf in two with a sharp snip. Ofuhong's calm voice slowly rang out. Precisely because she is my granddaughter, I have to scheme against her. By now, she must hate me to death, right? Behind him, Okan hurried to chime in. Rest assured, in the future Miss will surely understand your painstaking intentions. Those words made the man in front beam with delight. Hee. The next day, at Fortune Fabric Shop, the shopkeeper stood outside calling out excitedly. Our shop has reopened. Grand reopening with special offers. Everyone is welcome to come and support us. Dear customers, stop by and take a look. Don't miss it as you pass by. But when she saw who was standing outside the shop, anger surged inside her. What are you staring at? You fake. Sooner or later, I'll tear off your mask. Just then, a hand suddenly reached over. He quickly shut the window. The wind is strong outside. Don't let dust get in your eyes. Foduk swiftly hid the scheming look in his eyes behind a smiling expression and urged her, Miss, you should go get ready to receive the guests. Hearing that, the person beside them nodded in agreement. All right, Ongwin Bao quickly went outside to greet them. Dear customers, please feel free to browse. We have new stock in. Suddenly, a voice called out from behind her. Miss O, congratulations on your grand opening. At that moment, a man standing opposite saw the blank look on her face and continued, Miss O, don't you remember me? Hearing that, she thought to herself, he's not even that handsome. Why should I remember him? At the same time, Dying Two Man exclaimed in surprise, oh my, this is... Then she walked over and muttered an explanation. It's young Master Trin, the one who broke his leg after proposing marriage. Then said Miss was the cause and demanded the engagement be canceled. Hearing that, she immediately replied angrily, so it's him. Then she looked at the man before her and responded politely, many thanks, young Master Trin. He then spoke slowly, Miss O, actually, I came to apologize to you. Back then, my family breaking off the engagement ruined your reputation. Hearing that, she turned and walked away decisively. What's past is past, so let's not bring it up again. We just opened and things are a bit busy. Forgive me for not receiving you properly. Feel free to look around. Unexpectedly, he grabbed the hand of the person in front of him. Actually, breaking off the engagement that day was not what I wanted. This scene happened to be seen by Foduk from afar. Hearing that, the woman opposite frowned in displeasure. If you came to buy something, then of course you're welcome. But if you came to say these things, then please leave. Realizing he had overstepped, he bowed and apologized. Sorry, I was too abrupt. I'll take my leave first. Foduk hurried over to Ongwin Bao. Miss, are you all right? Don't be fooled by his sweet talk. Maybe he only pretended to break his leg back then, just so he could smear your name and conveniently call off the engagement. Hearing that, she denied it immediately. No, he definitely wasn't pretending. Hearing that, he angrily retorted, you trust him that much? Seeing that he had misunderstood her, Ongwin Bao sighed helplessly. It's not that I trust him. It's because I was the one who made him break his leg. The person opposite her froze in shock. You? Why? She helplessly explained. Why else? Because I didn't want to get married. I even hoped my reputation would get even worse. But you, not only did you recognize young Master Trin immediately, you even knew he used a broken leg as an excuse to cancel the engagement. Hearing that, he started panicking inside. Damn it, I slipped up. Ongwin Bao narrowed her eyes suspiciously at the man before her. Shouldn't you give me an explanation? But with her modest height, she still had to stand on tiptoe just to glare at him properly. Foduk then placed a hand on her shoulder and said softly, it's nothing more than the self-cultivation expected of an excellent shop assistant. Learning more about my employer is something I should have done from the beginning. Seeing that, she puffed out her cheeks and thought this brat is really strong. The hand she was digging into his shoulder made him grit his teeth as she said, then you really are quite capable, aren't you? The man opposite immediately replied enthusiastically, I have to be worthy of the high salary you're paying me. She then pointed forward aggressively and said, I hope everything you said is true. You probably don't want to know the consequences of betraying me. He raised his hand and swore, I, Foduk, swear to heaven that I will absolutely never betray Ongwin Bao. But inwardly he thought, how could I ever betray her? I came here to win her. Hearing that, she patted him on the shoulder in satisfaction. Very good. Follow me and you'll have a bright future. If you're obedient, I'll buy you an entire street. If you're not, I'll break your legs. Understood? At that, he laughed indulgently and answered, yes, but the hand behind his back tightened into a fist. In his mind, he kept screaming too adorable. I really want to pinch her cheeks. No, I have to endure it. Suddenly, she waved to Dying Two Man. Two Man, since Steward Foe is so eager to learn, tell him in detail what kind of person I am. Hearing that, the girl asked in confusion, huh? What am I supposed to tell him? Ongwin Bao leaned closer and murmured softly to her. Hearing that, the person beside her immediately said smugly, "Just tell him I'm deep-minded and full of ruthless methods. Give that brat a good warning first, so he won't dare harbor bad intentions and will obediently work for me." Hearing that, the girl clearly replied, "Understood." Then she turned to Fo Duk and said loudly, "Go on then, what do you want to ask?" Hearing that, he asked, "Miso said young Master Trin's leg was broken because of her. What exactly happened?" At that, she seemed to set up a little storytelling stand and began recounting the old tale. Back then, after Miss had 2 engagements canceled in a row, rumors gradually spread throughout the city that she brought death to husbands. Based on the principle that heavy rewards produce brave men, Master O announced that half the family fortune would be given as Ong Gwyn Bao's dowry. Sure enough, the very next day, a brave man came knocking. The man on the left was young Master Trin, son of the wealthy Trin merchant family of Langton. While they were talking, Ong Gwyn Bao and her close maid were hiding above and eavesdropping. At that moment, she grimaced and muttered, "So there really are people greedy enough to want money more than their lives." The girl beside her hurriedly said, "Half of the O family's fortune is worth more than 10 Trin families put together. You could say it's a huge pie big enough to save someone 3 lifetimes of struggle." The person beside her turned away helplessly and said, "TSK, TSK. That young Master Trin is way too unprofessional." With such a disgusted expression, is he planning to live off a woman and still act offended about it? Hearing that, Dying Two Man knelt and asked, "Then shall I go down now and drive them away?" But Ong Gwyn Bao stopped her, her eyes turning crafty and unreadable. "I wonder whether they're really greedy enough to want money even at the cost of their lives. I want to test it." After that, outside the O residence, O Fu Hong was seeing the guests off. "Take care on your way. Farewell, Master O, until another day." At the same time, she stood beside the horse and sneered softly. "Humph." Then she pulled out a pill and handed it to the horse. "Eat this." After that, she quickly disappeared as if she had never been there. On the road, Madame Trin kept speaking in delight. "I didn't expect it to go so smoothly. It seems this Misso really can't be married off. We just need to quickly bring her home, and then all that vast fortune will be ours." But he did not seem happy. "Mother, aren't you afraid she really does bring death to husbands?" The moment he finished speaking, the horse suddenly neighed and began thrashing uncontrollably. The scene frightened him. Stop now." Then he was quickly thrown off by the horse and kicked onto the road. Following behind, Ong Gwyn Bao immediately shouted, "Someone's dead. Eldest Miss O has brought death to another husband again." Hearing that, passers-by turned to look and began murmuring, "What happened?" "It's the Trin family's young master." Madame Trin, holding her son, burst into tears. My son. No, the engagement must be canceled. Cancel it immediately." After telling this much, Dying Two Man slowly said, "Young Master Trin broke his leg and his nose bridge and had to recover at home for half a year." The Trin family quickly canceled the engagement. From then on, they avoided the O family as if avoiding tigers and wolves. After hearing that, Fo Duk fell into thought. Then why did he dare come looking for Nguyen Bao today, and even say such ambiguous things to Miss O? The person opposite frowned and said, "That's true. What exactly is that bastard trying to do? Should I chase after him and beat him up?" The person beside him quickly cut in. "It's probably too late to catch up now, but he'll surely come back again. Let's just wait and see." Meanwhile, Nguyen Bao was hiding behind them and eavesdropping, growing even more suspicious. After hearing all this, how can he not think I'm cruel and ruthless? Fo Duk, this man's reaction is completely wrong. Just then, inside, Dying Two Man hurried in. "Miss." She shook the person on the bed, while quickly saying, "Several distinguished guests have already made reservations. Miss, if you don't get up now, you won't make it in time." Then she quickly brought over a basin of water. "Hurry and wash your face." Ong Gwyn Bao was still dizzy and half asleep. "I'm so sleepy." Then she dunked her whole face straight into the basin. The person standing beside her merely said coolly, "Give up resisting. Trying to drown yourself is useless. Hurry and change your clothes." After getting herself dressed and ready, she sat down so Dying Two Man could do her hair. When she saw herself in the mirror, she cried out in horror, "I got dark circles from exhaustion again. Cover them up for me right now." Ong Gwyn Bao am a good-for-nothing wastrel. Everyone knows I spend money like water, a pretty but empty-headed beauty. And now I actually have to work hard and toil for money like this? I've truly fallen too low. Hearing that, the person behind her was speechless. Miss, you really are remarkably ambitious. At that moment, the person in front asked while patting on Powder, by the way, did you find out anything from what I told you to investigate about Foduk a few days ago? As she adjusted the hairpin for her, the maid replied, I checked. I didn't find anything suspicious. He's just an orphan with no one to rely on, and he doesn't seem to have any connection with the old master either. Ongwin Bao fell silent for a moment and then said, is that so? But I always feel that he's no ordinary person. Emma, I understand. Your beast-like intuition. Hearing that, the maid immediately pictured in her mind a fierce tiger that meowed. As the two of them walked outside, the girl behind her asked, since Miss feels Foduk is suspicious, why not just dismiss him directly? The person beside her slowly explained, if I dismiss him, where will I find someone that capable again? There's so many things to do in the shop. Someone always has to do them, right? Look, haven't I still kept that old shopkeeper around too? Besides, a chess piece is best placed somewhere clearly visible. In the second-floor guest room of the fabric shop, she sat there bored and annoyed. Just then the shopkeeper came in. Miss, the guest has arrived. Immediately after, a man's figure appeared before her eyes. Miso, the moment she saw him, the person before him frowned. Why is it you again? Foduk beside her also turned serious. The one who made an appointment with us was clearly the Fong family for the east of the city. Young Master Trin, what is the meaning of this? Hearing the question, the other man replied unhurriedly, the Fong family and my Trin family have many partnerships. This fabric business is especially a joint venture between us. So it is perfectly normal for me to come negotiate this deal. We're discussing business. Surely Miss O won't be so rude as not to welcome me? Hearing that, she once again put on her usual lazy manner and said, why wouldn't I? Young Master Trin, are you misunderstanding something? Did you think I was some proper and respectable lady? Hearing that, Foduk beside her quickly covered his mouth to suppress a laugh, looking at the man whose name had just been called out with eyes full of sympathy. At that moment, she thought to herself, you dare scheme against me and still expect me to save face for you? Even though being notorious as a wastrel gives me a bad reputation, it really does make things satisfying when I act. Young Master Trin could only force out, Miso truly knows how to joke. At that, both of them began clapping. She kept praising him. Oh my, I was being this sincere, and yet young Master Trin could still tell I was joking. How very clever of you. Let me applaud you for that. Why is young Master Trin still standing? Please have a seat. Seeing Ongwin Bao's fake smile, his face twisted as he silently chanted to himself, don't be angry, don't be angry. Business comes first. Then just as he sat down, he said, I came today because, but before he could finish, the person across from him cut him off. Hold on. You know I'm just an ignorant playboy. I don't understand business at all. If it's business, talk to the deputy manager. Then she immediately whispered to the person beside her, can you handle it? Hearing that, Foduk answered confidently, don't worry. Then he turned to the other man and said enthusiastically, that's right. I am fully in charge of the business of Fu Kui Fabric Shop. Young Master Trin, feel free to negotiate with me. At that moment, she hurriedly got up to leave. You two take your time discussing things. Please excuse my rudeness. I'll take my leave first. Seeing this, he frowned and called out, Miso, but the person beside him held his shoulder, not letting him leave. Young Master Trin, let's begin discussing business. This new fabric is woven with gold and silver thread. Meanwhile, the moment Diane Chuman saw her come downstairs, she asked, Miss, weren't you in the middle of talking business? The girl opposite her answered with a displeased expression. The one who made the appointment was the Fluong family, but the one who came was that Trin fellow. Wait, what was his name again? As if I'd waste my breath negotiating with him. Hearing that, Diane Chuman rolled up her sleeves and said angrily, he really had the nerve to come again? I told you we should beat him up so he wouldn't dare come bother you anymore. But Ongwin Bao suddenly cut her off. No hiti. No matter what he's plotting, business has come right to our door. It would be foolish not to take it. Those words made Diane Chuman look at Ongwin Bao with admiration. Miss, I think if you can beat that illegitimate son in the competition, you really do have the potential to become a profiteer. Hearing that, Ongwin Bao nodded in agreement. I think so too, but he deliberately used tricks to force this meeting, and the way he looks at me makes me very uncomfortable. Pick out a sack that suits him. Receiving the order, Diane Chu-man quickly replied, "Don't worry, Mississippi. I'm best at this kind of thing." Then, seeing her about to leave, she could not help asking, "Miss, where are you going?" The other girl turned around and flashed a bright smile. Of course, to do something naughty. On the other side, people on horseback were racing noisily around grounds. "Charge! Faster! Go!" Seeing this, Bao turned back and taunted them. "You'll never beat me." Hearing that, one of them cursed. Damn it! Just as she was brimming with excitement, her eyes suddenly widened. A familiar figure appeared right in front of her. The man opposite her immediately yanked the reins and shouted, "Are you trying to get yourself killed? Move aside." Fo Duk, however, said coolly, "The eldest miss abandoned the shop's work to come here. Shouldn't you give me an explanation?" At once, her hands began trembling in panic. "Are you sick or something? We're almost at the finish line, and this is the time you choose to say that." Suddenly, the horse reared violently and threw her off. In her panic, she frowned and thought, am I really about to smash face first into the ground? My beauty that could topple cities. But when she landed, she blinked in confusion. Her hand unconsciously gave a squeeze. The person beneath her slowly opened his eyes, his face flushing red as he thought to himself, "Well, who would have guessed? He's just a poor scholar, but his body is actually quite nice and well-proportioned." She swallowed quietly. Seeing that she still had no intention of getting up, he said, "Old Master O has arrived at the shop and discovered you weren't there. O can volunteer to come look for you." The moment she heard that, Bao sprang up as if she'd seen a mouse. What? The man before her calmly dusted off his clothes. "I already stopped O Can for you, so you still have time to make up a reasonable excuse." Bao was stunned. Just then someone walked over carrying a gleaming tray of silver and said excitedly, "Miss O, this is the jackpot prize money you won. You're always welcome to visit us again." But inwardly he was crying, "Please don't come again. You win every single time. All the gamblers bet on you, and I'm about to lose my shirt." Bao then handed the tray of silver to the man in front of her. "If I say I came here to make money, do you think grandfather will believe it?" He only gave her a meaningful, hard-to-read look as if to say, "Figure out yourself." She followed his gaze. Then she suddenly exclaimed excitedly, "Got it!" Meanwhile, Oken was whispering something to O Fu Hong. The more he listened, the uglier his expression became with anger. Just then she came running in from outside. Grandfather, why didn't you tell me before coming?" Then she shoved the person beside her aside. Seeing this, he asked, "Tell you beforehand, so you'd have time to prepare?" Hearing that, she shot him a murderous glare. "Grandfather, don't listen to his nonsense. I went out to discuss business." At once, Oken raised his voice in rebuttal. "But I heard that my dear niece went to the horse track, didn't she?" Bao immediately pulled out a paper and replied, "That's right. Flags, cloaks, and ribbons at the racetrack are consumed in huge quantities. The owner of the track has agreed that from now on, all their fabric will be supplied by our Fu Kui fabric shop." Hearing this, Oken cried out in shock. "How is that possible? How did you do it?" But she only answered lightly, "I have my own methods." Back then, she had looked slyly at the betting house owner beside her. "As long as you agree to this deal, I guarantee I won't come horse racing again." Hearing that, the man had hurriedly grabbed her hand. "Deal?" Only then did O Fu Hong speak in a steady voice. "I believe you truly want to learn and improve. Otherwise, you would not have signed this agreement." As he spoke, he took out a contract. The person beside him widened his eyes in confusion. Diane Chu-man and Fo Duk will be responsible for supervising and teaching Bao. In all matters related to the management of the fabric shop, Bao must obey them unconditionally. If she violates this, the two of them have the right, on behalf of Old Master O, to admit defeat. What kind of nonsense is this? Why does it have my fingerprint and signature on it? But he merely patted her shoulder and said slowly, "Seeing such determination from you puts my mind at ease." After snapping out of it, she turned to the person beside her. "Man," but the girl avoided her gaze. Seeing this, Bao's heart shattered, and she shouted angrily, "Man, after all these years between us, you betrayed me too?" Hearing that, Diane Chu-man pulled out 2 gold ingots. I didn't want to either, but Master offered way too much. That dazzling golden glow nearly blinded Bao, but she still stubbornly retorted, "Just for that little bit of money. Diane du man gao get di li." More importantly, Master said that as long as you can improve, he'll help me find a good husband. You may not want to get married, miss, but I do. Miss, you have to admit, with the reputation you used to have, if I kept following you around, I definitely wouldn't be able to get married. Those words pierced straight through Bao. You're so blunt. I don't even know how to scold you. Then she paused. Wait, there's one more person. So, scholar, are you also one of grandfather's people? Hearing the question, Fo Duk fell silent. I wasn't before, but now I feel like maybe I am. At that, she nearly turned to stone. Elsewhere, young Master Trin's face was swollen like a pig's head, and the sight made Madame Trin ache with distress. My poor Exina. At the same time, Master Trin hurried in. What happened, Exina? Her eyes brimming with tears, Madame Trin said, Isn't it all because you forced him to go meet that jinx from the O family? Hearing that, the man opposite her said in shock, Impossible. The master already calculated it clearly. Ongwen Bao's 8 characters are extremely auspicious. The thing about her bringing doom to husbands is nonsense, and she doesn't clash with our son either. At once, Trin Xian exploded in anger and shouted, Tell her to take a look at the broom she smashed to pieces. That means she had someone beat me up. Those words startled the people before him. What? She had someone beat you? That vicious little shrew. No wonder no man wants her. Master, you have to stand up for Exiner. Hearing that, Master Trin sank into thought. A useless girl like her suddenly got caught up in an inheritance dispute. This should have been the time when she was at her weakest. If you had stepped in to help her now, it should have been easy to win the beauty's heart. So how did you end up getting beaten instead? What exactly did you do? Hearing that, Trin Exen hurriedly explained, That little wench has already been keeping a pretty boy by her side and guarding against me everywhere. Upon hearing this, the man said coldly in anger, Since she refuses to appreciate kindness, then don't blame us for leaving her no path to survive. The man before him immediately lit up with anticipation. Father, what are you planning to do? The other man answered sinisterly, That illegitimate son of the O family will surely be very willing to cooperate with us. Hearing that, Trin Xin revealed a crafty smile. Then I'll wait until she has not a coin left to her name and comes kneeling to beg me. Looking at that face of hers, I might even let her serve as a bed warmer. Elsewhere, a voice rang out, Miss, just give up. 3 figures stood outside the door. Dying 2 man added, Pretending to be dead won't work. The work is still there, no more and no less. From inside, the woman put on a weak and pitiful tone as she complained, How can you all be so cruel, heartless, and unreasonable, bullying a helpless weak woman like me? Doesn't your conscience hurt? Fo Duk raised a wooden board and said quickly, First, we can. The person beside him continued, Second, you are not a weak woman. The shopkeeper added, Third, I don't have a conscience. Hearing that, Ongwen Bao slammed the table and shouted angrily, I'm your boss. Believe it or not, I'll fire every last one of you. Fo Duk glanced at Dying Chu Man, then said calmly, I believe the eldest miss will come to understand on her own. The other girl nodded in agreement. That exchange left Ongwen Bao standing there in stunned silence. Then a table full of delicious food was brought in. Dying Chu Man called out loudly, Today's meal is really lavish. Miss, once you finish your tasks, you can come eat. Hearing that, she puffed up her cheeks in dissatisfaction. Threatening me? Even if I, Ongwen Bao, starve to death, I will never compromise. But her traitorous little stomach betrayed her. Growl, growl. A few seconds later, she was already happily gnawing on a chicken drumstick. So delicious. Seeing this, the person beside her reminded her gently, Eat slowly, don't choke. In truth, you're very smart. Many things you understand after learning them just once. So why insist on turning yourself into the useless person everyone knows? Hearing that, she calmly wiped the grease from her face and answered, With my family background, it's better to be a wastrel. The other person asked in confusion, Why do you say that? Ongwen Bao pulled out a handkerchief, a child carrying gold through the marketplace. Anyone who doesn't grow greedy isn't human. In other people's eyes, I'm that child. As she spoke, she placed a cup of water into his hand. Fo Duk asked blankly, When you said before that you deliberately ruined your reputation, was it just because you didn't want to get married? The girl across from him answered while chewing, I heard Madame Trin with my own ears telling her son to hurry up and marry me. Because once they married me, my vast family fortune would belong to them. If the groom's family wants to marry me for money, then that marriage is far too dangerous. As long as I stay alive, I can always get a divorce and take my dowry with me. Only if I die would they be truly at ease. Hearing this, he began to frown seriously. Actually, you have many strengths too. For example, you're beautiful, intelligent, thoughtful, kind. There will be someone who truly likes you, not someone who comes only for your wealth. Hearing those words, her face immediately turned red. You. Then she hurriedly waved her hands. You don't need to flatter me like that. I already promised you I'd work hard. Once words are spoken, even 4 horses can't chase them back. Seeing this, he burst out laughing. It's best that you figure it out yourself. But after only a few seconds, she wilted again and sighed. Actually, I was still hoping the O family would decline under my hands. The person beside her cried out in confusion. What? She continued slowly. I mean, you're right. Grandfather is worried about me too. Maybe I should let him know that I'm capable of protecting myself. The next morning, the sound of crowing roosters filled the air. Ongwin Bao opened the window, her eyes shining with excitement, and said, "The first thing after waking up every morning is to encourage yourself. Starting today, I'll rise with the rooster and practice with the sword. I'm determined to work hard and become an outstanding person." Hearing those words, the rooster turned and stared at her blankly. In the account room, the shopkeeper hugged a stack of fabric and sobbed. Oh, Mrs. finally decided to better herself. Then today, let's first get a basic understanding of fabrics. Like a well-behaved student, she replied with notebook and brush in hand. All right. After 1 stick of incense's time, her head was already spinning from the other man's non-stop lecture. There are plain silk, patterned silk, cloud silk, shoe silk, woven silk, jade silk. Thus began her journey of learning about fabrics, from beginner to giving up. After a while, she quickly slapped her cheeks to jolt herself awake. How about I start with serving customers first? Soon enough, voices called out one after another. Boss, she answered briskly. Coming. Boss, I want to see that fabric. Boss, come here for a moment. Boss, how much is this bolt of cloth? And so, she rushed around all day long until night gradually fell. The doors of the shop were finally closed, and Dying Two Man was startled to see that half of Ongwin Bao's soul seemed to have drifted away. Miss, the other girl looked utterly drained. Then Dying Two Man quickly began massaging her legs. Yes, right there. Harder. I'm exhausted from standing all day. At that moment, Fo Duk brought over a thick stack of account books. Miss, your evening schedule is to learn bookkeeping. Hearing that, she screamed inwardly. I must have been insane last night to come up with this plan. Then, sounding as if every bit of strength had been sucked out of her, she said, If I regret it now, is it still not too late? But he rejected it at once, firmly and decisively. No, after a while, she tied her hair to the beam and began working through the accounts, muttering miserably, I'm so sleepy. On the second day, Ongwin Bao cried miserably during the day. Time to go to work again, while at night, her hands swelled as big as a veteran boxer's after closing the shop. 3 days later, she lay on the bed, as peacefully motionless as a salted fish. Standing beside her, Dying Two Man asked helplessly, Didn't you say you were going to work hard and improve yourself? But the other girl brushed it off. That was something Gwen Bao from 3 days ago said. What does it have to do with me? Seeing that, Dying Two Man continued. So you've already made up your mind to be lazy? The person before her looked depressed and dispirited. I think I've contracted an illness where studying or working make my whole body uncomfortable. Why do people even have to work? Nobody wants to work, right? The person beside her dragged her along as she replied. True, but only by working hard can you make make us live the life we want. Ongwin Bao whimpered in grievance. I don't want to get up, but only a few seconds later, her expression quickly returned to normal. Young lady, your true intentions have been exposed. But that's not wrong either. You're my money tree. If you do well, then I do well too. Fine then, let's work. In this vast world, making money is what matters most. Poverty is forcing me to strive. Those words of praise made Dying Two Man blush bright red. 3 months later, Ongwin Bao stretched tiredly. I finally gritted my teeth and survived another day. Fo Duk quickly came and holding the account book and said, I have good news. Miss will definitely be delighted when she hears it. After deducting the cost of the initial goods bought on credit and all other investments, the fabric shop has finally turned a profit today. Hearing that, she stared blankly. But the person beside her excitedly grabbed her hand. That's wonderful, Mississippi. We actually made a profit. We've earned money. Aren't you happy? At that moment, she slowly spoke in an outwardly calm tone. It was all within expectations. What's there to get excited about? But inside, she was secretly thrilled. Oh my God, the shop didn't get shut down, and we actually made money. Wow, doing business isn't that hard after all. I really am a genius. Then she stepped forward and said, everyone's worked hard lately. Tonight, it's on me. Let's go to Tu Lao Tuk Vai Tien and celebrate a little. Standing beside her, he immediately added, I heard that's the best and most expensive restaurant in the whole city. A poor scholar like me would never dare set foot in such a luxurious place in this lifetime, if not for the first Mrs. Generosity. Hearing that made her even more pleased with herself. Exactly. Having such a good boss as me means you all must have burned a lot of incense and done many good deeds in your past lives. But suddenly, alarm bells went off in her heart. Wait, if there's profit, doesn't that mean my wages? I want 10% of the profits. Seeing her stare at him so strangely, he asked in confusion, Miss, why are you looking at me like that? She hurriedly replied, No, nothing. I'm just happy for you. Just then, the waiter quickly brought over the dishes. Customers, your food is here. Ongwen Bao stood up and spoke generously. Come, I'll toast everyone. Eat well, drink well, and work even harder to crush that Okan. Speak of Chow Chow, and Chow Chow appears. I only just arrived and already heard someone calling my name. The scene made her spit out all the wine she had just drunk. He walked in leisurely and said, I didn't expect it to be the eldest granddaughter. What a coincidence. At that moment, Ongwen Bao frowned and gritted her teeth. Why are you here? Seeing how agitated she was, Pho Duc, standing beside her, quickly reminded her, Miss, be careful. Not only was Okan not angry, he deliberately put on an irritatingly flippant expression instead. Perhaps because I'm richer than the first miss now. I come here often, but this is indeed my first time seeing the first miss here. Those words made the person before him nearly explode, and she cursed inwardly. How can it be someone whose way of talking is this infuriating? Unable to hold back, she strode straight forward and shouted, This is my private room. Get out at once. Hearing that, he merely raised a brow and said slowly, Ah, the first miss still has the same fiery temper as always. All right, I didn't come alone. At that, her face darkened even more. Could that old man be here too? No, wait, what am I afraid of? I'm here to celebrate making a profit today. I have every right to be here. At the same time, a low male voice rang out. Miss O, it's been a long time. The moment she saw Trin Tien appear, her face instantly stiffened. She gave a cold snort. I heard young Master Trin was beaten and injured before. If a man makes too many enemies, he should at least learn how to protect himself. It's already late, so don't go wandering around outside. Hearing that, his expression immediately turned vicious with rage. That despicable, shameless backstabber. Once she falls into my hands, I'll make her wish she were dead. As he spoke, his gaze fixed intently on the person who kept her head down and continued eating. Following his line of sight, she also turned to look at Dain Chuman, the backstabber he was talking about. Only then did Okan leisurely speak up. Now that greetings have been exchanged, we'll take our leave first. Hearing that, Ongwen Bao froze in surprise. After they left, she turned to look at her and quietly asked, Tell me, what exactly is Okan's background? The person beside her answered casually while chewing her food. Wasn't he deliberately found by the master to put on an act and provoke you? The person standing nearby also fell silent. That's only my guess. There's no solid proof. But if that old man really has gone astray and can't preserve his virtue in his old age, then wait, why didn't he marry Okan's mother into the family? Could she have already been someone else's wife? Pho Duc gave 2 soft coughs. Ahem, ahem. Miss, your voice is a little too loud. Hearing that, she awkwardly raised a hand to cover her mouth. Everyone, just keep eating. Waiter, add 2 more dishes. Inwardly, she thought, as long as I'm not embarrassed, then the embarrassed one will be someone else. Then she turned to Dain Chuman and whispered instructions. Go listen in and find out what Okan and that Trin fellow are talking about. Better safe than sorry. I absolutely cannot lose. Suddenly, a cup of wine was held out before her. First Mississippi. At that moment, he slowly expressed his sincerity. If not for the first miss saving me that day, there would be no me today. I offer the first miss this cup. Hearing that, she was somewhat startled. Then a bit of confusion and suspicion rose in her heart. This guy isn't trying to get me drunk, is he? I'm really surrounded by wolves on all sides. Then she quickly picked up her own cup and said with a bright smile, Sure. But inwardly she was smug. You clearly know nothing about this wastrel's drinking capacity. After downing 2 jars of wine in one go, everyone finally left one after another. The waiter quickly escorted them all the way to the entrance. Take care, customers. As they walked, Ong-gwin Bao glanced at the person beside her and asked in puzzlement, "Didn't you say you couldn't drink? Why'd you drink so much? Can you still make it back on your own? Do you need me to help you?" Hearing that, he answered honestly, "I overestimated my own capacity. Then I'll trouble the first Mississippi." As he spoke, he even took the initiative to hold out his hand. This made the person opposite him think to herself, "I was only being polite, and you're actually taking it seriously?" But she still hurriedly reached out to support him. At the same time, from a corner of the street, a faint little voice pleaded softly, "Please, have mercy on me." That drew both their attention, and only a few seconds later, a few copper coins had been added to the chip bowl in front of the beggar. The beggar immediately thanked her profusely. "Thank you, Sister Nguyen-bao." At the sight, he murmured softly, "That habit of yours really hasn't changed at all." But those words happened to reach her ears. "Huh? What did you just say?" Realizing he had let something slip, Pho Duc quickly tried to cover it up. "I think I'm really quite drunk." Seeing that, Ong-gwin Bao cried out in alarm, "Hey!" But the other man had already gone limp and fallen straight into her arms. She couldn't help asking worriedly in a low voice, "Are you all right? Can you still walk?" However, she received no reply at all. At that moment, she muttered inwardly, "Although this guy always makes me feel like he's not simple at all, I have to admit, this face really is handsome. It's completely my type." Then her hand lightly touched that handsome face. "I really want to poke him just to vent a little." But just then, the person in her arms suddenly came to and asked, "Miss, what are you trying to do?" That made her blush guiltily as she replied, "Of course I was trying to poke you awake. You're too heavy." At that moment, he trailed behind her and apologized in a low voice, "I'm sorry. I was thoughtless and caused trouble for the Mississippi." The person walking ahead merely said calmly, "Good that you know it. Since you're fine now, walk on your own." Suddenly, Pho Duc spoke again. "The first miss may not know this, but when I was little, I was a beggar too." Those words made the other person exclaim in surprise. At once, Ong-gwin Bao comforted him. "That's all in the past, so don't think about it anymore. You're living very well now, and in the future things will definitely get even better." Pho Duc only replied slowly, "Yes. It's all thanks to the first Mrs. Blessing. Back then, I was fortunate enough to be taken in by a kind benefactor just like you. Because of that, I no longer had to wander the streets begging for food." Hearing those words caused her to fall into distant memories. "When I was little, I picked up a little beggar too. He was really very handsome. I asked him if he wanted to come back with me." Sensing that she seemed about to remember something, he quickly interrupted, "The first miss is very kind. He must have been very grateful to you." But she immediately denied it. "No, he must hate me because I caused his death." Those words left him completely frozen on the spot. Then the person before him quickly turned away to avoid his gaze. "I think you're sober now, so go back by yourself." As she spoke, she raised a hand to wipe away her tears. After that, Ong-gwin Bao sat alone on a high rooftop with empty wine jars scattered all around her. "Father, Mother, are you doing well over there? I miss you so much. Father, Mother, I've earned money. Are you happy? All these years, have you also thought I was useless? I am sorry. I was useless. I couldn't avenge you. And in order to protect myself, I even ruined my own reputation." Then she lifted a jar of wine and drained it in one gulp. "I don't want grandfather, at his age, to still have to worry about me. But I'm truly afraid too. If I become better, then I'll definitely be targeted again. I don't even know who is backing the Trin family for behind the scenes. If you truly have spirits in heaven, can you help me? Tell me what I should do." After saying that, she hurled the wine jar down. He, standing below, quickly caught it. Seeing that, he said with heartache, "First miss." After hearing no more movement, Pho Duc leaped up onto the roof. Seeing her still mumbling, "Father, Mother, it hurts," he immediately reached out and pulled her in his arms. "I am sorry. I came too late." The next morning, roosters crowed loudly everywhere, and she woke with a splitting headache. "My head hurts so much." Standing beside her, Dain Tu Man said coolly, "How could you not have a headache after getting drunk? And what happened to all that talk about being able to drink 1,000 cups without getting drunk?" Hearing that, she muttered under her breath, "Maybe I just wanted to get drunk." As she sat there letting Dain Tu Man comb her hair, she absent-mindedly asked, "Wait, how did I get back last night?" Hearing that, the woman behind her was immediately baffled. "How much did you drink?" "You drank so much you lost your memory." At that moment, she was forcing herself to recall what happened. "Last night, whoa, being a person is so hard. I don't want to be a person anymore. Don't think that just because I smile and laugh all day, I'm actually happy. I'm not happy at all. The moment she remembered that, her whole face flushed bright red, and her head felt as though it might burst into flames. No way, no way. That guy absolutely cannot have seen me in such an embarrassing state. It was a dream. It had to be a dream. Then, in a fit of fury, she rushed out. Damn it. Seeing that, Dying Chu Man called after her in surprise. Miss, where are you going? At the Prosperity Cloth Shop. She charged straight inside and immediately saw him. The moment he saw her arrive, he was startled and delighted. First, miss, but before he could finish, his mouth was firmly covered. She leaned in, grabbed his clothes, and hissed, "Shut up, don't say a word. Come with me." Once they reached a secluded corner with no one around, Ongwin Bao looked at the person before her and stammered, "Last night, did you?" Before she could finish, Fo Duk calmly spoke first. "Miss, are you asking about how you got drunk and cried in my arms last night?" Those words were like a sharp arrow shooting straight through the person before him, leaving her frozen stiff in an instant. At that moment, Ongwin Bao frowned and wailed inwardly, I'm dead. So it wasn't a dream after all. This is so humiliating. I want to leave this beautiful world." Then she finally shouted, "You know too much, so you're fired." But he merely smiled leisurely and pulled out the contract they had signed earlier. "I'm afraid that won't do. I still haven't helped you earn 10,000 taels yet." Seeing that contract, she stood there blankly and thought to herself, so I dug this pit myself, only to trap myself in it in the end? But the man in front of her quickly raised a hand and continued in a serious tone, "Please don't worry, Mississippi. I will absolutely keep what happened yesterday tightly sealed. Let it become a secret between the two of us." Hearing that, she suddenly became suspicious again. "So easy? What exactly are you after?" As though he had already achieved his purpose, he slowly said, "If I could get 120 taels as hush money, that would be best." Hearing that, Ongwin Bao frowned in disbelief. 120 taels? But inwardly, he calculated, if I don't ask for anything at all, I'm afraid you'll trust me even less. At that moment, she immediately began to play dumb. Do I even have any money? Aren't you the one keeping the accounts for my room? Profit, 32 taels. Minus meal expenses, 32 taels. That leaves exactly nothing. Not a single coin. Seeing that, he could only sigh helplessly before slowly suggesting, "How about this, miss? Leave this jade pendant with me as temporary collateral, and when you have money, you can redeem it. How about that?" Hearing that, she clutched the jade tightly in her hand and shouted, "You're acting like a bandit. You're simply disgracing the scholarly class." Fo Duk merely smiled faintly and replied, "If the miss does not wish to give it, then naturally I will not force you. But I'm afraid my mouth won't remain so tightly shut anymore." At that, the person before him gritted her teeth and slammed the jade into his hand. "Shameless, I'm going to the storehouse." Then she turned and stormed off angrily. Looking at the jade in his hand, the person behind her softly murmured, "Actually, this jade pendant was something I picked out with you." Meanwhile, Dying Chu Man entered and reported, "Miss, young Master Quan Viet has returned." Hearing that, she turned away from the account books in delight and asked, "Why has he come back?" At that, Dying Chu Man reminded her, "Have you forgotten? In 2 days, it will be Second Madam's birthday." The person opposite immediately smacked her forehead. "Look at me. I've been so busy, I even forgot the date. This is bad. I haven't prepared a birthday gift for Second Mother yet." But before she could leave, the person beside her poured cold water on her excitement. "Prepare what? At most, you can only take 2 bolts of cloth from the fabric shop, and even that would have to go on credit. Our family is not what it used to be anymore." After hearing that, Ongwin Bao tossed the stack of account books in her hands to the person beside her and hurried out. "No, I have to think of a way to earn some money." But the person behind her coolly reminded her, "This earning money you're talking about wouldn't happen to mean going to the gambling house, would it?" Those words instantly made the other woman freeze in place. Suddenly, a familiar voice sounded from behind. "Big sister." Hearing that voice, Ongwin Bao quickly covered her mouth in surprise. A young boy ran in and called sweetly, "Big sister." O Quan Viet was born into a branch line of the O family and was now being raised in the main O household. The moment she saw him, she rubbed his head and said with a smile, "You've grown quite a bit taller and quite a bit more handsome too. I wonder which little girl's family you'll marry into one day." Hearing that, he answered honestly, "You're not married yet, big sister, so I'm not in any hurry." Suddenly, she pulled back her hand and looked at him warily. "You weren't invited by that old man to come persuade me to get married, were you?" Seeing that, the young man laughed and waved his hand. How could that be? I'll always be on big sister's side. I already know about your argument with grandfather. As he spoke, he pulled out a stack of banknotes and stuffed them straight into her hand. Take this money, big sister. The moment she saw the banknotes, her eyes lit up at once. As expected of my good little brother, big sister didn't dote on you for nothing, right? Did you run into that bastard child? He didn't make things hard for you, did he? When asked, Okwon Viet innocently shook his head. I haven't seen him. I went to see mother as soon as I got back, and then I came straight to find you. Let's go back to the residence and talk. Mother specially made your favorite dishes. Hearing that, she suddenly hesitated. But I made an agreement with that old man that I wouldn't return to the residence during the competition period. I'm afraid he'll seize on it, blow it out of proportion, and say I broke the agreement, so I have to admit defeat. Hearing that, he said seriously, big sister, don't you know? Grandfather is all bark and no bite. He actually really wants you to come home. It's just that he find it hard to say so. Hearing those words, she asked doubtfully, really? Then I'll go back and see him. I'm just too soft-hearted and filial. As she said that, she immediately grabbed the person beside her by the hand and quickly headed out. Cutting through this shop will be faster. But while the siblings were still beaming, Pho Duc suddenly appeared and blocked their way. Mississippi, the moment she saw who it was, she exclaimed in surprise, huh? But the other man's gaze instantly shifted to the person beside her, carrying a hint of judgment. Okwon Viet was no less unyielding and looked straight back without backing down. After a moment of tense silence, the man in front of them finally spoke slowly. Miss, it is still working hours right now. Where are you going? And who is this? But at that moment, Pho Duc's eyes were drawn uncontrollably to their tightly clasped hands. His face gradually paled as he asked, who are you? Seeing that he seemed to have misunderstood, she hurriedly explained, let me introduce him. This is my younger brother, Quan Viet. Quan Viet, this is Pho Duc, the fabric shop's bookkeeper and head cashier. Hearing that, he showed a confused, puzzled expression and said, as I recall, old master has only ever had you as his granddaughter. I've never heard that you had a younger brother. Hearing this, the person opposite slowly opened his mouth and said, he is, but before she could finish, he cut in bluntly, that's our family matter. There seems to be no need to explain it to a cashier and bookkeeper, is there? Sister, let's go home. And with that, he pulled her away. Seeing this, she awkwardly instructed, I'm going home for lunch. Keep an eye on the shop for a while. At that, his hand clenched tightly, and wave after wave of indescribable anger rose in his heart. Once outside, Okwon Viet asked curiously, Sister, where did you find this accountant? He looks like some pretty boy. Don't tell me he came because he has designs on you. Hearing that, the person walking beside him answered confidently, don't worry. Your sister is very smart. He's just a shameless money grubber. Pho Duc had no idea that she had secretly branded him with two nicknames that would be hard to shake off. At the guest hall, as soon as she stepped inside, she waved and called out, Mother! The woman who heard her turned to look. It was none other than the O Residence's second madam, Commandery Princess Tonham. She quickly walked over and took her hand, completely ignoring her own child as she said, You're finally back. You've gotten thinner. Why are your hands so cold? Why didn't you wear more clothes? Hearing that, Ong Gwyn Bao thought in confusion. There's a kind of thin called your mother thinking you're thin, and a kind of cold called your mother thinking you're cold. Without another word, Tonham pulled her inside by the hand. I made your favorite dishes. Eat more and nourish yourself a little. Hearing this, he protested aggrievedly. Mother, your son is back too. Couldn't you at least look at me once? I got thinner too, but she merely smiled and replied, Who was it that came back, took one look at me, and then rushed off to find his sister? And now you remember you need your mother? Okwon Viet was left speechless by his own birth mother, his face flushing red. Inside, as she picked food for her, Commandery Princess Tonham said, Nguyen Bao, eat more. Not to be outdone, he added, Sister, that's your favorite dish. Looking at the bowl piled full of food, she said with tearful eyes, Thank you, second mother. Thank you, little brother. Seeing that, Tonham could not help asking worriedly, What's wrong? Were you wronged outside? Hearing that, she hurriedly wiped away her tears and reassured her. Maybe it's just been too long since I've eaten food made by second mother. Smelling this fragrance all of a sudden makes me feel that being home is wonderful. Hearing that, the person beside her proposed, If home feels so good, then move back here. As for old master, I'll speak to grandfather. At that, she shook her head and refused. That won't do. I absolutely will not bow my head to that old man. Seeing this, Tonham could not help asking, Child, what are you sulking with your grandfather about? The old master loves you the most. He definitely wouldn't harm you. But as she ate, she complained angrily. He even produced an illegitimate son who isn't much older than me. Am I not allowed to be angry with him? Those words left the person before her momentarily speechless. That's true. Suddenly, Ao Guan Vit spoke up. Sister, do you think that really is grandfather's illegitimate son? When he was young, grandfather never took concubines and never remarried. Could it be that in his old age, he suddenly became as passionate as a young man? Just as he finished speaking, a cough suddenly came from outside, startling all three of them. When O Fu Hong and O Kan entered one after the other, the former spoke sternly as he walked in. You went out to study for a year, and this is what you learned, how to speak ill of your elders behind their backs. Seeing this, Ong Gwyn Bao immediately stepped forward to shield him and said, Quan Viet was only telling the truth. How is that speaking ill? Or you can admit that this illegitimate son is fake, that you only made him up to deceive me. Then Quan Viet and I will apologize to you together. The two looked at each other, and the atmosphere fell into silence. After a while, he finally spoke slowly. In 2 days, I will notify the clan elders and have Okan entered into the family register. Rest assured, after Okan inherits the O family, he will also treat you well. He has promised you half the family fortune as your dowry. You will lack for nothing. Hearing this, her heart jolted and she wondered, why isn't he denying it? Could it be that this illegitimate son wasn't just brought in to force me forward? He's about to be entered into the family register. So he really is an illegitimate son? Then the hand holding hers suddenly tightened. She said coldly, only 3 months of the 1-year agreement have passed. Who wins and who loses is still unknown. If you want that illegitimate son to inherit the family business, then we'll see whether he has the ability. Hearing this, O Fu Hong only replied calmly, Nguyen Bao, you are a girl. You were never meant to inherit the family business. Wouldn't it be better to find a good man, marry him, and become a noble madam? But before he could finish, an angry shout cut him off. No, it wouldn't, because I don't like that. You are the one who made the agreement, so let's speak according to the agreement. Don't even think of marrying me off to make room for that illegitimate son. When everyone walked out, a steady voice suddenly sounded. Walk slowly on your way out. Go back to eating. Hearing that, the two opposite her could not help being surprised. At that moment, Ong Gwyn Bao spoke with a smile, her tone relaxed and natural. As expected, second mother's cooking is still the best. Hearing that, Commandery Princess Tan Ham said gently, if you're sad, then cry. Don't hold it in. In front of second mother, you don't need to force yourself to be strong. Hearing this, she replied casually while chewing, I'm really not sad. That old man was just deliberately trying to provoke me. At first, I wasn't sure whether that illegitimate son was real or fake, but now I can say for certain that he's fake. Hearing that, the eyes of the mother and son across from her immediately lit up, clearly eager to hear more. The scene made her a little embarrassed, and she coughed twice. Ahem, ahem. Very quickly, a cup of tea was handed to her. Sister, wet your throat first. As she drank, she slowly analyzed things in detail. My father knew nothing at all about business, and his son was even more useless. That's why he set his sights on me, his granddaughter. Ever since I was little, grandfather personally taught me business skills. If he really thought girls shouldn't inherit the family business, then why would he have taught me? That illegitimate son is several years older than I am. In our family, we've always had female head clerks and female workers. He has never been the sort to cling to the outdated idea that women shouldn't show their faces outside. Clearly, what he said just now was only meant to test me. Hearing that, the person beside her could not help asking, if you already know that, then just do as he wishes and correct yourself properly. These past few days, he's often sat alone in your room for a long time. Those words made Ong Gwyn Bao's face redden slightly. She answered softly, I know. I'll work hard. I definitely won't let him look down on me. Second mother. There are still some matters at my shop that I need to deal with, so I'll be leaving first. In 2 days, I'll come visit you again. At that moment, Tan Ham hurriedly called out, wait a moment, then quickly turned around and brought out a small wooden box. Take this. If you need anything, just tell second mother. As she accepted the box, she still looked puzzled. What is this? But the moment she opened it, the light from what was inside nearly dazzled her eyes. She quickly pushed the wooden box back. I'm not so short of money yet that I need this. Second mother, you should keep it, Tan Ham said gently. This was originally part of the dowry I prepared for you. I'm only giving you part of it in advance now. Do you really think I wouldn't know whether you're short of money or not?" Hearing that, she felt even more spirited and delighted. "All right then, we'll count this as your investment in me. When I make money later, I'll share the dividends with you." Hearing that, Ton Ham did not refuse. "Very well. Second mother will wait for you to make money." As she went out, she walked along humming cheerfully under her breath. "I have money now. I have money now. I need to figure out how to spend it properly." Suddenly, Okwon Viet came running up from behind. "Sister, let me see you off." When he reached her side, he leaned in and asked in a low voice, "Sister, do you really not intend to get married?" She replied casually as she walked, "Men only affect your sister's money-making speed. Truly, just as the saying goes, with no men in your heart, making money turns you into a god." Hearing that, his mind immediately ran wild, imagining all sorts of things. "No puedo decir." Then he suddenly cried out, "Sister, even if you don't want to marry, you can't become a nun." At that, she helplessly tapped the person beside her on the head. "Anun? What nonsense! I want to devote myself wholeheartedly to building my career. I want to become the woman who leads the O family to an entirely new level." The person beside her quickly hugged his head and said pitifully, "If you inherit the O family, then all the more reason you have to bring in a husband to marry into the family. If you don't get married, then won't the O family have no heirs?" The more she listened, the brighter her eyes became. "Isn't there still you? You can just have a few more children, and I'll choose the smartest one to raise." Those words completely stunned the person in front of her. "Sister, are you serious?" "Sister, the fact that your romantic fate hasn't gone smoothly before really wasn't your fault. You're so wonderful. There will definitely be someone in this world who truly likes you." But she only responded absent-mindedly as she walked. All right." At that moment, as soon as they returned to the fabric shop, Pho Duc hurried out to greet them. "Miss, you're back." Hearing that, she was startled. The two facing each other called out at the same time, "Sister, Mississippi," but Nguyen Bao only indifferently patted Okwon Viet on the shoulder. "Thanks." Seeing that, he turned and shot the person behind her a glance. But before he could step inside, the person before him cut in. "All right, you should head back. I'll come on second mother's birthday." Then a voice suddenly rang out. "Mr. Pho, would it be convenient to speak in private?" The two of them then walked together to a hidden corner. Without any hesitation, he got straight to the point. "I advise you to give up your ideas about my sister sooner rather than later. You are not worthy of her." Hearing that, Pho Duc answered honestly, "I will work hard to become worthy of her." But the other party paid no mind. She has already decided to inherit the O family. She can only take in a husband who marries into the family. Yet the answer from the man opposite left him baffled. "What's wrong with marrying into the family? I don't mind at all." At that, the other side cried out in alarm, You're a scholar. You should be taking the imperial exams and earning official rank. Unfortunately, no matter how determined you are, it'll be useless. My sister has already decided that she will never marry in this lifetime." Inside the shop, she was excitedly showing off to Dain Man. "I have money now." Seeing that, he slowly continued, "Then I will remain by her side as a friend and quietly protect her for the rest of my life." 2 days later, at the O residence, today was the birthday of the second madam. Nguyen Bao and Dain Man walked in side by side. After only a few steps, a mocking voice suddenly sounded from behind them. Isn't this you?" Oken appeared from behind and said, "Nguyen Bao, dressed up like this today, you look quite good. Why insist on showing your face outside and doing business?" Hearing that, she crossed her arms and replied irritably, "What are you doing here? You're not welcome here." He only laughed and replied, "The second madam is also my sister-in-law. Of course I should come to wish her a happy birthday." Hearing that, the person opposite him spoke coldly. "Are you so immersed in your role that you've forgotten your own identity? A fake like you dares to speak." At that moment, Oken stepped closer and lowered his voice to whisper, "Speaking of which, if not for Commandery Princess Tonham, my elder brother would not have died so early." Hearing that, she was stunned for a moment, and she frowned tightly. "What do you know? Was this attempt to sow discord that old man's idea, or are you acting on your own?" The other party only said calmly, "I'm merely telling the truth." How can that be considered sowing discord? For you to think that way, I'm truly heartbroken. At that moment, a dagger suddenly appeared in her sleeve. She swiftly pressed it toward his throat as a warning. I don't care what your identity is or what you want to do, but if you dare harm anyone in the O family in the slightest, I don't think you want to know what methods I'm capable of. Okan merely raised 2 fingers to block the dagger, then said calmly, You're finished speaking? How could I possibly harm the O family? I hope for the O family's well-being more than anyone. Hearing that, she only replied flatly, It had better be so. Just then, Okwon Viet appeared. Sister. The moment she saw him, she shoved the person beside her away. Why did you come out here? Don't tell me I'm late. As for Okan, resentment churned endlessly in his heart. So this little girl has 2 faces after all. Ongwin Bao cannot be bothered with him and said, Wait while I go get the birthday gift. Then she pulled Dain Chu Man aside and whispered instructions to her, leaving him still standing there in confusion. Hurry and drive off that eyesore of a bastard. Don't let him go butter up second mother. Hearing that, her eyes immediately sparkled as she replied, Yes. Inside, she was thrilled beyond measure. Great, I finally get to fight. After giving her instructions, Ongwin Bao took Okwon Viet by the hand and left. Let's go inside. The person beside her asked worriedly in a low voice, What is he doing here? He didn't bully you, did he? But she only answered indifferently, I've always been the one bullying others. Who would dare bully me? On such a good day, don't waste your breath on someone irrelevant. At that moment, Dain Chu Man rubbed her hands together, her eyes fixed eagerly on the person before her. The moment to hunt had arrived. She quickly rushed over and started attacking Okan. After a while of chasing and fighting, Dain Chu Man looked at the man in front of her, who was breathing hard, and mocked him. Go on, run. Why did you stop? He hurriedly signaled for her to stop and quickly said, Your mistress told you to drive me away. You've already pushed me this far out. Shouldn't that be enough? However, the person opposite him paid no attention. What you say makes sense, but my hands are itching. I want to fight. That punch was immediately blocked by the man opposite her. This action startled her, and she thought to herself, this man really does know martial arts. But she did not stay alarmed for long and quickly threw out a kick. Take this! But his arm was as hard as iron, making her feel irritated and annoyed. Damn it. Then she unleashed move after move in succession, but every single one of them was easily blocked by him. Dain Chu Man frowned and shouted, Who exactly are you? But Okan only asked calmly in return, Even if I told you, would you believe me? At that, the person before him nodded and answered, I would. Your martial arts are upright, forthright, and chivalrous. A person with evil intentions could never cultivate such skills. Hearing that, he could not help being surprised. Then he spoke. To receive the trust of such a lovely young lady is my honor. I still cannot reveal my identity for now, but rest assured, my purpose is the same as yours. It is all for the good of the eldest miss. As he spoke, his eyes shone brightly. At that moment, her heart unexpectedly stirred a little. When he was serious, this man was actually somewhat handsome. Suddenly, the man facing her stepped closer, making her recoil in alarm. WH, what are you doing? All at once, he moved in close, raised a hand, and said, I swear here and now, I will absolutely never harm anyone from the O family, or you. Just then, a voice sounded from beside them. Miss, I've driven him away already. Hearing Dain Chu Man's voice, she calmly continued admiring the flowers and replied, Good. It would be best if he never dared show his face in front of me again from now on. But the moment she heard that, she cried out in surprise, Huh? Why is your face so red? Dain Chu Man hurriedly covered her face and stammered, is it? And maybe it's just hot. On the way back, walking beside her, Dain Chu Man could not help asking, Why did you refuse second madam's offer to send someone to escort you home? The road is pitch black like this. It's so hard to walk. Hearing that, Ongwin Bao only explained slowly, but compared to daytime, I actually prefer the night more. Do you want to know why? The other girl seemed to guess what she was about to say and quickly interrupted, Miss, it's all in the past now. Then Gwyn Bao lifted her head and looked up at the deep night sky. A familiar figure suddenly surfaced in her mind. Nguyen Bao's birth mother had died just as dawn was breaking, and from that day on, the sky in Nguyen Bao's world had never brightened again. Her voice sounded again, slow and quiet in the stillness of the night. Tell me, when mother was forced to hang herself, What do you think she was thinking? Would she blame me for not helping her take revenge? Seeing her like that, the person beside her quickly supported her slightly trembling body and comforted her. Madam loved you so much. How could she possibly blame you? Miss, you absolutely must not do anything rash. But Nguyen Bao spoke again, full of grievance. Even though I knew Okan was deliberately provoking me, his words still got to me. Dying Chu Man hurried to soothe her. Don't think too much. Just sleep and it'll all. But before she could finish, the sight ahead terrified her. Then what is that? In the distance, a glowing figure was slowly approaching, carrying with it a strange, eerie feeling. A G-ghost, Aya, mistress, and maid immediately clutched each other and screamed. Suddenly, a familiar voice rang out, shattering the tense atmosphere. Miss, it's me. Seeing who it was, she exclaimed in shock. Bifoduk, why aren't you asleep in the middle of the night? What are you wandering around for? Though she scolded him aloud, inside, she quietly let out a breath of relief. Don't you know you can scare people to death like that? Hearing this, Pho Duk said seriously, Miss, it's so late and you still hadn't returned. I was very worried. I thought I should light a lamp to guide your way. So I just stood waiting at the gate. At those words, the eyes of the person before him flickered slightly. So you care about me that much? Meanwhile, the one behind them made a pained face and muttered softly, the sour smell of love. As she spoke, she pursed her lips in displeasure. Suddenly, Nguyen Bao grabbed the shoulder of the person in front of her and gave it a hearty slap. Kid, you got good sense. You've got a future ahead of you. Work hard for me, and I won't treat you badly. That action fell into Diane Chu Mana's eyes, and she thought indifferently to herself, of all people to like. He had to go unlike Nguyen Bao, this blockhead. As for him, he raised a hand to touch the shoulder she had just slapped and whispered softly, Miss, but the culprit was lively as ever and said loudly, I'm going back to sleep. As soon as she stepped into the little courtyard, her resolve only grew firmer. If you're the whetstone grandfather gave me, and you still won't behave, then I'll start by using you to sharpen my blade. The next morning, Nguyen Bao enthusiastically declared in high spirits, the dashing Nguyen Bao of the past is dead. The current me is money-making Nguyen Bao, rich Nguyen Bao. First, let's set a small goal, earn 10,000 taels. Step 1 is dealing with Okan's ready-made clothing shop. After hearing those words, Diane Chu Man panicked and pinched her own cheek hard. I'm definitely not fully awake yet. Somebody pinch me. Meanwhile, Pho Duk beside her kept clapping in approval. Good. The shop manager, after hearing all this, was also thoroughly bewildered. What kind of shock had made the eldest miss act like this? Seeing this, the person before them grew even more excited. Then it's settled. Let's get to work. Manager, you watch the shop. Chu Man, you keep an eye on Oak and Pho Duk. You're coming out with me. The moment he heard that, his face immediately lit up. Yes. At this point, the person beside her could not help asking worriedly, Miss, where are you going? Why don't I come with you? But Nguyen Bao only waved a hand and replied, Don't worry. We're not going to fight, so there's no need for you. Suddenly, he spoke up to ask, Miss, are we going to negotiate business? At that, she answered matter-of-factly, No, we're going to recruit people. Recruit a few good tailors. Then the two of them headed toward Long Hung Tailor Shop. Night fell, and the fabric shop had long since closed, when suddenly a shadowy figure sneaked into view. He splashed a pale yellow liquid onto the shop door, then bent down and gently blew on a flint. Very quickly, flames flared up. Seeing this, he became even more pleased and sneered. I'll use a single fire to burn your whole fabric shop to the ground. Suddenly, another light appeared and cut him off. Well now, whose lawless maniac is this? The voice startled the villain so badly that he dropped the tinder to the ground. At the same time, Nguyen Bao stepped out of the shadows. Young Master Trin, you came personally to commit arson. Having been caught, Trin Tin stammered in panic. It's burning. Help! His own flames had set his clothes on fire. He hurriedly dropped to his knees and begged, Misso, I was wrong. Save me. Suddenly, a splash of water was thrown straight into his face. The manager, Diane Chu Man, and Pho Duk all appeared at once, each holding a basin of water. Seeing that the situation was under control, the person behind them finally said coldly, A fire this small won't kill him. Take him to the authorities. Then she quickly signaled for him to be dragged away. Just then, two constables arrived, and one of them shouted, "Who's making noise outside so late at night?" Hearing this, Ongwin Bao immediately switched into the role of a weak, delicate young woman. "Officer, I want to report crime. Someone tried to set fire to my fabric shop." At those words, the two men opposite her changed color in alarm. "What? Did you see the criminal's face?" She hurriedly pointed at the drenched Trin Tin standing there. "Officer, it was him." The two constables, upon seeing him, showed some hesitation and unease. What exactly is going on here?" At this point, she quickly recounted the whole story. He was setting the fire and got discovered, panicked, and fell into the flames himself. "One idiot." The manager behind her immediately added in confirmation, "That's right." The person beside him also chimed in exactly like that. Fo Duk was the most enthusiastic of all, immediately raising his hand and shouting, "I can testify." Just then, a figure stepped out from the darkness, and a hate-filled voice ground out through clenched teeth, "Ongwin Bao, don't get too smug." At that moment, as Trin Tin was being dragged away by the constables, he kept shouting furiously, "I've got people backing me. Just wait till I get out. I won't let you off." One of the constables snapped at him in annoyance, "Behave yourself." Behind them, Nguyen Bao calmly waved her handkerchief and smiled. "Goodbye." Seeing this only made Trin Tin angrier, and he screamed madly, "Nguyen Bao." But by then, she had already turned around and said cheerfully to everyone, "All right, leave the scene as it is for now. Everyone go back and sleep. Two-man, you head over there first." At the same time, the door of the shop opposite suddenly opened a crack, and a voice rang out, drawing the attention of everyone present. "Oh, what a coincidence." The moment she saw Okan, Ongwin Bao frowned and demanded without courtesy, "Was what happened today connected to you?" Hearing that, he only replied slowly, "Since you've already guessed it, I won't hide it anymore. But can you give me a chance to explain?" Hearing this, she did not make things difficult for him. "Fine, explain. I'm listening." At that moment, he turned and pointed toward the fabric shop behind him. "This matter is important. I can only speak to you alone." Hearing that, the person beside her immediately stepped forward in alarm to block him. "Miss, this man is extremely cunning. He can't be trusted." But she patted the other person on the shoulder reassuringly. "Don't worry, I'll be careful." He then glanced at Fo Duk and said coldly, "This is a family business. As an outsider, stay out of it." Inside Long Hung Tailor Shop, the moment she stepped in, she spoke bluntly. "Explain." As he lit a candle, he spoke clearly and unhurriedly, sentence by sentence. "I was the one who instigated Trin Tin to come set the fire. I was also the one who sent word, so you would know he was coming to commit arson. You can rest assured, the Trin family are nothing more than expendable pawns. The person behind him won't protect him. They've already been abandoned. But even if one pawn is discarded, there will still be many more." At this, she pressed a hand to her forehead with a headache and repeated, "So even if one is discarded, there'll still be plenty more. I only hope the next pawn they send is at least a bit more handsome. Don't send someone so ugly it hurts my eyes." After hearing that, he merely observed calmly, "But it seems you were already prepared. It's not surprising that the Trin family has someone backing them." At this point, Ongwin Bao stopped hiding anything and answered frankly, "That's right. But at first, I wanted to lure you into making a move. I didn't expect you'd be able to make the Trin family deliver themselves right to my door." Hearing this, Okan widened his eyes in surprise, suddenly understanding. "So you deliberately let me overhear that you wanted to hire tailors. You were testing me." The person opposite him wore an unhappy, displeased expression and said, "Obviously, a fake who doesn't even dare reveal his real identity. What exactly is there about you that makes you worth trusting?" At this, he hurriedly protested with complete seriousness. "Then I swear to heaven, I will absolutely never harm you. Otherwise, may I be struck by lightning and die without a whole body left." The more she heard, the more contemptuous she looked. With her hands on her hips, she shot back mercilessly, "If oaths were useful, what would we need constables for?" Suddenly, the man opposite lowered his voice and continued, "I'm not telling you my identity because it's for your own good." At that, she burst out angrily, "I hate that line more than anything. If that's what you're going to say, then there's nothing more to discuss." She quickly turned and left without the slightest hesitation. Seeing that, the person behind her could not help muttering in complaint. How did she become this noisy? She was clearly much cuter when she was little. At once, she spun around warily and stared at the person behind her. "Who exactly are you?" At that, he chuckled and reminded her in a familiar tone, "You should be calling me cousin." The more she listened, the more her head spun in confusion. Cousin? Okan, Khan, heavenly Kan, earthly Kuan, Yungo Khan? How did you turn into this ghostly-looking state? At that moment, she gaped in disbelief. The man standing before her was actually the handsome youth from her memories. Ongwin Bao was still bewildered, unable to understand, her thoughts in complete disarray, unable to regain her bearings. How did you turn into such a ghostly state? Hearing this, Okan's face flushed red with embarrassment and irritation. He hurriedly smacked her on the head with his fan and scolded, "How can you speak to your cousin like that? So rude." Hearing that, she quickly admitted fault and softened her tone. "All right, right. This is more like it." He rubbed his forehead and let out a light sigh before slowly explaining, "You really haven't changed at all. Still just as silly. Don't you care how I managed to survive?" Only then did she suddenly remember the important point, and her eyes widened. "Oh, right. How did you survive? Make something up? Oh no, tell me." Hearing that, his gaze momentarily stiffened, and he looked at the person before him as he questioned, "You don't believe me?" But she remained flippant, half convinced and half doubtful. Seeing that, he could only sigh helplessly. "Then there's only one way." And slowly, right in front of her, he began taking off his outer robe. That sudden action made the person opposite panic, her heart pounding wildly. What are you doing?" I'm going to scream. But after covering her face for a moment, she could not help secretly thinking, wow, the moment words don't work, he's using the handsome man strategy? This is that intense? But Okan only turned his back and reminded her flatly, "Look." On his shoulder was a deeply inked tattoo of the character Zhong. Seeing this, Ongwin Bao was instantly stunned in shock. The man opposite her kept his calm, unhurried tone as he explained, "The men of the Inga family all received this tattoo at the age of 10 as a constant reminder to be loyal and righteous subjects." Her hand began trembling uncontrollably as she gently touched the tattoo. How can that be? Back then, all the men of the Nguf family were beheaded, and the women were exiled. At this, he only fell silent, straightened his clothing properly, then lifted his head to look at her and said, "Yes, extermination of the entire family." The charge was colluding with the enemy and betraying the nation. Loyalty and righteousness. What a mockery. But upon hearing those words, she hurriedly covered his mouth, her expression tense, brows furrowed as she warned him, "Be careful. Walls have ears. Come with me." After they reached a hidden corner beneath a tree, she could no longer hold back and asked in a low voice, "Are you really my cousin from back then? How did you survive? Does grandfather know your identity?" Hearing that, he finally began to speak, his voice steadier and deeper. "Of course he knows. As for how I survived, it was because my twin sister gave me her chance to live." At this moment, he recalled the old events buried deep in his memory. In that memory, a clear voice rang out. "Older sister, 8 years ago." Okan had only been 4 years old. Another voice cut in, calm and resolute. "There aren't many people who have seen you. We look alike. Wear my clothes. We'll switch identities." Hearing this, he hurriedly shook his head and refused. "No, older sister, I can't." But before he could finish, she stuffed the clothes into his arms, giving him no chance to resist. For women, exile is no mercy. It only turns them into playthings. The daughters of the Nguf family would rather die than suffer humiliation. You know martial arts. If you disguise yourself as me, you may find a chance to escape. Remember this. From now on, you are Ngulam. Those memories cut like knives, and he could not hold back the tears. They streamed down his face as his voice choked and trembled. "But I didn't escape by myself. It was grandfather, who saved me. The one who should have been saved was my sister. I stole her chance to live." Hearing those words, she quickly comforted him, her eyes reddening. "This is not your fault. Sister Lamb, in the underworld, would also be happy that you survived." At that, he took a deep breath and gradually steadied himself, his gaze growing more resolute. "You're right. I'm the only one from Nguf family still alive, so I have to seek justice on their behalf." Ongwin Bao then asked softly, her voice cautious, "Cousin, what are you planning to do? Calm down a little." He reassured her in a firm tone. "Don't worry. This life of mine was not easily won. I value it very much." Suddenly, as if remembering something, she asked in rapid succession, "Then why did you become Okan, the illegitimate son? What exactly are you and grandfather trying to do?" The more she spoke, the tighter her hand unconsciously clenched his clothing. The man before her then calmly asked in return, "Do you know how Aunt died?" Hearing that, she involuntarily let go, her face turning pale, then quickly turned away. I know mother was forced to kill herself. I've always known, but I could only pretend not to know. I can't avenge her. I really am useless. Hearing this, Okan also frowned, his voice sinking. If you put it that way, then I'm useless too. But if a great wrong cannot yet be avenged, a smaller one still can. Being forced to commit suicide and committing suicide are not the same thing. Those words struck her like a bolt of lightning, and she stared at him in shock. What? What do you mean? At that moment, tears glistened at the corners of his eyes, and his voice turned hoarse. Grandfather took me to see Aunt. At that time, we made a promise that we would both survive. At that moment, he pulled her tightly into his arms, as if trying to engrave this into memory. To live long enough to see the Ngu family vindicated. Even if people said she was forced, I still don't believe she would have hanged herself. Then he quickly took the hand of the person before him, his gaze solemn. A few days ago, I finally found some evidence. Originally, I wanted to investigate it myself. I didn't want you dragged into this. But now that you already know, and you're close to her, you'll investigate her for me, won't you? Hearing this, she stammered awkwardly. Be brother, you suspect second mother? Impossible. But before she could finish, he cut her off in a cold voice. Why is it impossible? What makes you trust her so much? Each of those words hit her mind like hammer blows, throwing her into chaos. No impossible. No, second mother would never. Hearing this, Okan finally spoke, slow but sharp. If you trust her so much, then what are you afraid of? Use the trust she has in you and investigate her thoroughly. If she really is innocent, wouldn't that put your mind at ease? After a long while, the person before him finally answered hesitantly, her voice weak. I understand. I'll investigate. Only after receiving that answer did he soften his tone again. All right, we've said everything that needed to be said. Go out now. As soon as the two of them stepped outside, Fo Duk hurriedly called out in worry. Miss. At the sight before him, he was utterly stunned. Okan's clothes were disheveled, and he was still tugging at the person beside him, leaving Fo Duk flustered and stammering. Why you? You too. A painting of a woman in military uniform holding a spear hung neatly in the room. Ongwin Bao quietly gazed at it and thought to herself, mother's room. Everything here has been preserved exactly as it was before she died. It's just a pity that the place remains while the person is gone. Things have changed and the stars have shifted. Her eyes reddened with tears as she called softly, her voice trembling. Mother, I've met cousin at last. He said that for my sake, no matter how hard it is, he will keep living. I'm sorry, mother. As your daughter, I was the one who failed to understand you. He has persuaded me. Will you bless me so I can uncover the truth? Suddenly, a cold voice rang out from outside. Who are you? Move aside. Fo Duk stood guard outside, while the other person insisted. Mrs. ordered that no one is to enter. Hearing that familiar voice, she was startled inwardly. She came as quickly. Second mother, please don't let it be you. She quickly wiped away her tears, turned around, and called out, Second mother, why have you come here? Tonham hurried in, her face full of concern. What's wrong? Have you been crying? Hearing that, Ongwin Bao calmed herself and answered steadily. It's nothing. I just miss mother a little. At this, Tonham could not help asking further. What exactly happened? Didn't you always refuse to come into this room before? Suddenly, she gripped the other woman's hand, lowering her voice. Second mother, come with me. Those words left the other woman confused, but Ongwin Bao said nothing more. Instead, she turned to the person outside and instructed Fo Duk, keep guarding the door. Don't let anyone else come in. He immediately replied, Rest assured, miss. After giving that order, she fell silent for a moment before slowly asking, These past few days, I keep dreaming of mother. She is furious, asking me why I haven't avenged her. Hearing that, the woman beside her looked unsettled and quickly said, Dreams are always the opposite. Your mother loved you so much, she would never force you like that. But before she could finish, another voice cut in. Second mother, did my mother really kill herself? Hearing those words, Tonham began to panic, her expression changing. Why are you suddenly asking this? Have you discovered something? Ongwin Bao covered her mouth and sobbed, her voice trembling. In my dream, mother keeps saying she was murdered. Her enemy lives in peace while her soul suffers torment. I couldn't calm my heart, so I came back to take another look. Hearing this, Tonham immediately embraced her and gently patted her back in comfort. Don't let your thoughts run wild. How could a dream be real? Have you forgotten the suicide note your mother left behind back then? The person she worried about most was you. But Ongwin Bao's brows drew tight, and she thought to herself, Second mother, it really seems like you're hiding something. Please don't let it be you. After a long moment, she finally said slowly, "Thank you, second mother. I'm all right now. Could I stay here alone for a while and keep mother company?" Hearing that, Tonham answered gently, "Then I'll go back first. If you want to cry, just cry it out." After the woman left, she stood there in silence, thinking, if mother really had been forced to hang herself, then with the height of this beam. She quickly lifted a chair in a place and reached toward the beam, but still couldn't touch it. "Fo Duk, come here for a moment." Hearing her call, he poked his head in and asked, "What's wrong?" She looked at him and said clearly, "I want to check the beam. Give me a hand. Can you lift me?" Hearing that, his face turned bright red, but he still answered decisively, "I can." Fo Duk, blushing furiously and squeezing his eyes shut, hoisted the woman he loved onto his shoulder, while she hurriedly reached up toward the beam. Her expression changed at once as she stared in shock at the deep scratch marks gouged into the wood. Mother really was forced into suicide. These scratch marks. In an instant, that image appeared vividly in her mind, and tears began pouring down her face as she cried inwardly, "Mother, I'm sorry. I'm sorry." But those tears panicked the man below her. "Miss, what's wrong?" Hearing him, she hurriedly steadied herself and said urgently, "It's nothing. Don't make a fuss." After a while, the two of them finally came out. Ongwin Bao looked at the man behind her and warned him sternly, "Don't mention what happened today to anyone, and don't ask about what you shouldn't ask." He answered simply, "All right." Just then, a figure flashed past her eyes. "Who's there?" Seeing that the other person had no intention of stopping, she quickly chased after them and shouted, "Stop running." When she cornered the figure, she put her hands on her hips and barked, "Who exactly are you? Why did you lure me here? What do you want?" The maid stopped, turned around, lowered her head, and said softly, "Eldest miss, this servant has something to tell you in private." Hearing that, Fo Duk spoke up, "I'll stand guard for Mississippi seeing this." She could not help praising him inwardly. As expected of someone I've taken a liking to, he really has good instincts. Promising indeed. The woman before her then spoke timidly. "Miss, on the night Madame Gu died, this servant saw a few things." The moment she saw the woman's face clearly, Ongwin Bao was startled. "Why you? You're one of second mother's attendants. My home." Now Ongwin Bao looked at my home with a cold, interrogating gaze. "My mother has been dead for 8 years. Why are you only coming to say this now? Speak." And just now outside the room, "How much did you overhear?" Hearing those words, the person before her visibly panicked, looking flustered and stammering, This servant." Then, as if driven to desperation, she quickly dropped to her knees. "This servant didn't do it on purpose. Back then, because I was afraid of dying, I didn't dare say a word. But all these years, my conscience has never known peace. Every day, I've lived in fear. Today, seeing how heartbroken Miss was over Madame Gu, I finally decided to risk my life and tell the truth." At this point, Ongwin Bao could no longer hold back and raised her voice coldly. "Oh, then say it. Let me hear it." The other woman lowered her head so deeply her face was pale and bloodless, her voice shaking. "That night, this servant went to the small kitchen, intending to steal something to eat, but I happened to run into the second madam. I saw her put medicinal powder into the food. At the time, Tonham instructed, 'Take it over to Sister Ngu. Make sure to persuade her to eat a little more.' My Hung had hidden behind a pile of straw and was so frightened by what she saw that her heart pounded wildly. After hearing it, however, the person before her only asked indifferently, 'What reason do I have to believe you?' The kneeling maid hurriedly cowed out. 'I have evidence. I secretly picked up the medicine packet the second madam threw away. There was still some powder left inside. It's a deadly poison.' As she spoke, she pulled out a crumpled scrap of paper. The moment Ongwin Bao saw it, she took several steps back. 'Who knows where you got this poison from? You call this evidence? Besides, what reason would second mother have to poison my mother? You wretched maid, you're clearly trying to sow discord.' As soon as she finished speaking, she knocked the paper away. Seeing this, the woman before her hurriedly tried to explain. No, that's not it. Everything this servant said is true. I also found a medical record in Madame Gu's room." At that moment, Ongwin Bao reached out and took the yellowed paper, her heart full of doubt. "Mother's medical record? Mother." She froze when she saw the words clearly written on it, "For months pregnant." She had already been 4 months pregnant then? Seeing her reaction, My Hung hurriedly continued, "If Madam had given birth to a young master, he would have been the legitimate eldest son. And Master loved Madam deeply, while being cold toward the second Madam. How could the second Madam possibly have allowed that child to be born?" Hearing those words, Ongwin Bao's eyes gradually darkened. Her hand tightened before she quickly folded up the medical record and put it away. I understand. You may leave now. Seeing that she was about to be dismissed, the other woman panicked and grabbed the hem of her clothing. Miss, I know you were always close to the second, madam, but I swear to heaven, every word I said is true. Hearing this, Ongwin Bao angrily flung the person behind her away and shouted, I said you can get lost. Don't you understand? Her fierce attitude frightened my Hung so much that she trembled. This servant will take her leave at once. After the figure disappeared completely, she bent down and picked up the medicine packet from the ground, then slowly crouched down, burying her head deeply in her knees. Seeing her sitting there like a wilted mushroom, Pho Duc stepped closer and called softly, Mississippi. His heart could not help aching. Wen Bao, is that maid crying? What exactly did that maid say to her? Thinking of this, he hurried forward another step. Miss, are you all right? But before his hand could touch her, she turned her head and said casually, Look, the ants are moving their nest. It must be about to rain. Hearing that, he could not help feeling confused. Were you just watching ants move their nest? The person beside him immediately stood up and dusted off her sleeves. Let's go. It's going to rain soon. We should hurry back. Seeing such an abrupt change in her mood, he could not help speaking up. Miss, I don't know what you're planning to do, but I hope you'll trust me a little more. Since you brought me along, that means you still trust me at least somewhat. If there's anything I can do, just give the order. I absolutely won't betray your trust. After hearing that, the person before him stayed silent for a long while before finally speaking slowly. It's not that I don't want to give you tasks. Then she thought helplessly to herself, just look at how tactful he is. Once I take over management of the household, I have to make him head steward no matter what. Scholars really do have a high level of awareness. Only then did she continue aloud. The main problem is that your face is too handsome. It doesn't suit doing surveillance work. Hearing this, Pho Duc could not help staring blankly. That's the only reason? Wait, you said surveillance? Was there something wrong with that maid just now? The person before him gave him an approving look full of meaning. Oh, you figured that out too? Smart indeed. You see, I really don't understand why every last one of them always thinks I'm easy to fool. I may be a bit unambitious and not particularly diligent in my studies, but that doesn't mean I'm stupid. As she said this, her hand unconsciously tightened around the medicine packet until her fingertips turned white. Seeing this, Pho Duc followed after her and asked, Miss, aren't we going back to the shop? Hearing that, Ongwin Bao answered frankly, I'm not going back. I still have something important to do. And that so-called important matter took place in a very noisy, bustling place. Bring them over. Hurry and give it a try. A ring landed squarely on a little tiger. She hugged it and rubbed it against her cheek, saying happily, Little tiger, you're so cute. Standing behind her, he could not help calling out uneasily, Miss. But in complete contrast to his expression, the stall owner on the other side kept grumbling bitterly, I can't believe she actually hit it. Then she excitedly slung the stuffed tiger on her back and said eagerly, Come on, let's go play arrow toss at the next stall. Hearing this, he frowned and could not help asking, You're still going to play? But immediately after, the pot full of arrows had already been set out. As she focused her mind, the people below had clearly split into two camps. He stood to one side, enthusiastically cheering her on. Miss, you can do it. Meanwhile, the shopkeeper beside him clasped his hands and prayed nonstop. Please, just this last one, don't let it go in. At that moment, the arrow was thrown. Let me see this. Then a mix of cheers and groans rose without end. Wow, she got it. She actually got it again. Misso is really amazing. The person above then put on a shy, affected air. Oh dear, all 8 throws hit. What a surprise. I can't believe that after all this time, my skills haven't declined in the slightest. But when she lowered her head and saw that the prize was a lantern, she could not help mocking it. TCH, this counts as your best prize? Hearing that, the stall owner responded obsequiously, My little business. Before he could finish, she pushed the lantern back toward him. Forget it. I'll let you off cheap this time. When you change it for something better next time, I'll come again. Hearing this, the other party was overjoyed and hurriedly replied, Oh, many thanks to eldest Miss O for being merciful. At that moment, Ongwin Bao cut him off. All right, enough. Pho Duc, let's go to the next stall. The people behind them watched her back and muttered among themselves nonstop. Didn't they say this little devil had turned over a new leaf? Why is she back to tormenting us again? Then I guess she hasn't washed clean enough yet. Let's pack up early today. After that, she quickly set her sights on another stall. Boss, I want to play this one. Hearing that, the other man stammered in fear. WL, I have something to do at home, so I'm just closing up now. However, she did not let him have his way. Instead, she smiled brightly and replied, it's fine. I can play very quickly. Hearing this, the stall owner's heart wailed in despair. Quickly? What do you mean quickly? Quickly taking away my precious silver? Suddenly, a voice called from behind. Mississippi. At the same time, the other stall owners hurriedly packed up their things. I have to go home too. Everyone run. Run together. She was still standing there blankly, not understanding what was happening. Huh, for me? He brought over 2 animal-shaped sugar candies and handed them to her, then said slowly, when you're in a bad mood, eating something sweet will make you feel much better. Hearing that, the person before him could not help asking, how did you know I was in a bad mood? He only answered calmly, I saw that Miss didn't want to go back, so I guessed. But his eyes looked at her with great gentleness. Inwardly, he thought, of course I can tell what the person I like is thinking. But Ongwin Bao turned her face away and denied it indifferently. Then you guessed wrong. I'm in a great mood. What if I'm in a good mood? Am I not allowed to have fun? Are you trying to lecture me again for fooling around? Seeing this, he lowered his voice and said softly that I was making wild guesses. Please don't be angry. Mississippi, think of this candy as my apology. Hearing that, she pouted and stayed silent for a long moment before speaking. Since you put it that way, I'll accept it. Pho Duc immediately smiled and said, many thanks to Miss for graciously forgiving me. The scene Pho Duc had imagined was this, her eyes shining excitedly at the candy. The bunny is so cute. I love bunny so much. The more he thought about it, the more excited he became. Miss eating a bunny candy would definitely be adorable. Suddenly, the person beside him spoke up. It's pretty cute. Looks tasty too. Then she brutally took one bite and bit the bunny's head clean off. The sight shocked him to his core. His imagination had been beautiful, but reality was brutally cruel. At that moment, Ongwin Bao looked exactly like a savage rabbit butcher, still holding a brick in her other hand, as if she wanted to smash the entire world. Who else wants some? Only then did she finally notice her surroundings. Huh, wow, that's really not playing fair. There's nothing interesting here. Let's go back. Hearing that, he grew a little anxious and softly called out, Miss, his eyes never leaving her back. One day, I will make you truly willing to trust me. I will also make it so you can be genuinely happy, so you can live as your true self. Please wait a little longer. Back at the fabric store, Oken was chatting merrily with Diane Chu-man. The moment she stepped inside, Pho Duc frowned and barked, why are you here? Seeing her return, Oken immediately started acting. Of course I'm here to chat about family matters with my darling. Hearing that, she instinctively shuddered. You're taking my line, as usual. At once, he stepped in front of her. Miss, this man is your romantic rival. Don't let his sweet talk fool you. The moment he finished speaking, the other man casually brushed his hand aside. Come on, let's talk upstairs in the second floor parlor. Chu-man, brew 2 cups of tea and bring them up. Don't let anyone disturb us. Only then did Oken smile and reply, all right, I'll do as you say. That scene made Pho Duc furious. As soon as they sat down, Oken couldn't hold back and asked, how far has the investigation gone? The person across from him quickly explained everything from beginning to end. There really is a problem. Someone has been deliberately leading me step by step, and second mother definitely knows something. Just then, a figure appeared and interrupted their conversation. I've come to serve tea. Then he slowly poured the golden tea, fragrant with the faint scent of premium leaves. That scene, combined with Pho Duc's beautiful face and calm demeanor, was so dazzling that even a Yuan Bao felt inexplicably irritated. She quickly tore apart his performance. What are you doing? Put the tea down and get out. Don't let anyone come in and disturb us. Hearing that, he still remained calm as he placed the teacup into her hand. As you command. Miss, please enjoy your tea. I'll take my leave. That sight left the person beside her staring blankly in thought. Isn't this preferential treatment way too obvious? As soon as the door shut, she immediately signaled to Okan. I have an idea. But before she could finish, the door suddenly swung open again. Seeing this, she frowned in displeasure. Didn't I say no one was to disturb us? But the other man only replied calmly, as though nothing was wrong. Miss said not to let anyone else disturb you. That's why I personally brought refreshments. At that point, irritation was already taking over her mind. Are you playing word games with me? Without another word, she grabbed him by the collar and dragged him straight outside. Startled by that sudden move, he cried out aggrievedly, Miss, I'm only worried about you. That man looks scheming at first glance. Don't trust his words. But she paid him no mind at all. I haven't even started worrying yet, so it's not your turn. From now on, no one is allowed in here, including you. With that, she unceremoniously tossed him out and slammed the door shut. Once that was settled, she turned back as if nothing had happened. All right, let's continue. Seeing that, Oken couldn't help laughing. Someone like you actually has people who like you. Seriously, that's just... But before he could finish, the person opposite him stuffed a pastry straight into his mouth. While he was fumbling around looking for water, Yuan Bao quickly picked up the teapot with a smug expression. Want some water? Beg me. At once, he slumped onto the table and weakly fanned himself, his voice muffled. I'm begging you. After finally getting some water, he couldn't help but grumble. Women really are the most vicious creatures. But the person beside him only smiled as brightly as a flower. If you don't know how to talk, you can always choose to be mute. His face went pale as he forced out, a girl from a respectable family shouldn't be this violent. At this rate, I really am worried you won't be able to marry. Suddenly, he froze when he felt the deep, unreadable look from the person across from him. He instinctively took a step back. Then he panicked and blurted out, WH, what kind of look is that? What are you trying to do? All of a sudden, she got in the mood to tease him. Won't be able to marry? Isn't there still you? I think father would be quite happy to see the two of us become even closer. But to the person standing outside the door, the words arrived only in fragments. Mary, you, close, closer? Faux Duke's brain practically started smoking. No, this can't be real. At the same time, the shop manager appeared at the end of the corridor. Faux Duke, what are you doing here? Hearing that, he panicked and quickly covered the man's mouth, gesturing for silence. Miss ordered that no one is allowed to disturb her. After hearing that, the man hurriedly nodded to show he understood, then quietly left. Meanwhile, inside, Oken awkwardly hurried to change the subject. Wait, let's talk this out properly. I misspoke. Our Yuan Bao is wonderful in every possible way. How could I ever be worthy of her? Hearing that, the person beside him finally nodded in temporary satisfaction. At least you know your place. Now let's talk business. On the way back, I deliberately made a scene in the marketplace for quite a while. My goal was to make the person behind all this think I'd believe the lies and was distressed and confused. After that, I'll stay inside and not go out. You want them to think you don't dare face the truth, that you're hiding from it? Exactly. That way, they'll definitely try to push me one step further. As she said this, her gaze gradually sharpened. And when that time comes, I'll follow the clues and track them down. I will definitely find the mastermind behind this. The moment she finished speaking, Yuan Bao acted like an emperor proudly wagging his tail, the implication obvious. I'm smart, right? Hurry up and praise me. Oken wasn't stingy either. He patted her head and said with a smile, our Yuan Bao really is grown up. At the same time, he silently thought to himself, but I wish you could stay like when you were little forever, never knowing what worry was. That action flustered her, and she quickly sprang to her feet. Teach, there you go again, looking at me like that. I'll hit you, you know. That made the person beside her laugh out loud. Haha, I already told you not to be so violent. Just then, Dying Chu Man came in with news. Miss, something was discovered at the door. Hearing that, she frowned in puzzlement. It's only been 2 days. Looks like they're really getting anxious. The note read, Yuan Bao, come to the villa outside the city at noon today. Second mother has something to say to you. After reading it, she let out a cold little laugh. The imitation handwriting is pretty convincing. Faux Duke, let's go. Just as the two of them reached the door, a figure came closer. Sis, where are you going? Quan Viet called out while waving. The moment she saw him, she cried out in surprise, Quan Viet, at his sudden appearance. Yuan Bao's thoughts became a tangled mess. Why is Quan Viet here now? Is it a coincidence? Or, seeing her expression, Quan Viet couldn't help feeling hurt. It seems sis doesn't welcome me. Why? Is it because you're rushing off somewhere with this pretty boy weakling? Meanwhile, Faux Duke, standing beside her, immediately became wary and thought to himself, what kind of family is such a grown younger brother clinging to his older sister every single day? And he's not even her blood brother. There's definitely something wrong with this guy. The atmosphere suddenly turned strangely quiet. Then, all of a sudden, Quan Viet dashed to her side, shoved Faux Duke away, and clingingly latched onto her. Sis, where are you going? Let me come with you. That left the person opposite him completely stunned. Come with me? Does he know where I'm going? Then she raised a hand to her forehead and slowly refused. No, there's no need. Seeing that, the person beside her immediately called out sadly, Sis. But she quickly withdrew her hand, her voice becoming firmer. I have business today. I can't go with you. Why you should go back first. The person behind her quickly cut in to echo the sentiment. That's right, young master. Miss has important matters to attend to. Another day, when she's free, she can spend time with you. Right, miss? But in Oh Kwon Viet's mind, those words automatically transformed into a bizarre scene. She turned into a dashing, flirtatious young man, while Pho Duc became a beautiful woman using her charms, standing beside her and indifferently replying. Then from behind, he hurriedly urged, Your Majesty, let us go. That eye-searing image made Oh Kwon Viet rub his eyes repeatedly. Am I hallucinating or something? Part 4. Prepare for action. At that moment, Dying Two Man stepped out to see them off. Take care, Mississippi. At the same time, Okan also appeared. As Oh Yuan Bao walked away, she thought to herself, I'm going now. You two be ready to support me. The two of them promptly replied with their eyes. Message received. Understood. Meanwhile, behind them, the person left standing there watched the pair depart with the resentful eyes of an abandoned wife. A poor, lowly scholar thinks he deserves to like my sister? I'll definitely drive you away. When they arrived in front of a door, the maid inside spoke. Eldest miss, second madam has been waiting for you for a long time. Please follow this servant. But the moment they entered, two household guards blocked their way. What is the meaning of this? At once, one of them explained. Second madam instructed that she will only meet Miss alone. The other added, Please stop here, little brother. Hearing that, she turned and instructed the person beside her, then wait here. He hurriedly stopped her. No, that's not acceptable. It's not safe for you to go in alone. I have to follow you. But the person in front of him gently refused. Second mother wants to see me. What could possibly be unsafe? Besides, you're just a frail scholar. Between the two of us, who would be protecting whom? Hearing that, he immediately started mentally reviewing the original career choices. Top martial scholar, merchant, and realized he had long ago double-clicked on the scholar route. All he could do now was bite his handkerchief in resentment. I truly regret choosing this identity. Inside, the small courtyard was peaceful and quiet. Suddenly, she asked, Do you know why second mother called me here? The person walking ahead answered indifferently. This servant does not know. When they reached the place, the maid lowered her head respectfully. Second madam is waiting for you in the inner room. Please go in. Hearing that, she merely nodded calmly. All right. The moment she entered, the maid briskly shut the door behind her. Oh Yuan Bao's voice rang out. Second mother, I'm coming in. Outside, Pho Duc grew increasingly uneasy, his thoughts racing. No, I can't just stand here and wait. Yuan Bao is still a woman, after all. Then he instantly switched on his acting mode. Oh dear, sorry, sirs, I have a stomachache. Can you let me use the latrine for a moment? One of the guards frowned at him and waved him away. Don't try any tricks. Go deal with it at the gatehouse outside. Go, go, go. Hearing that, he smiled and hurriedly left. All right, I'll go first then. If my lady comes out before I return, please let her know for me. At that same moment, a low voice sounded from inside. Still not out yet? Huh. Hearing that, his hand clenched tighter, and he quickly rushed up onto the roof. His heart grew more and more anxious. Where exactly is she? Suddenly, a scream rang out. Don't. That familiar voice threw him into utter panic. Yuan Bao. Then another cry sounded from inside the room. Don't come over here. Help. He kicked the door open and charged in. Yuan Bao. But when he shoved open another door, he froze in shock. She was standing there with a chair in her hands, still shouting, Help. Beside her, a man lay on the floor, foaming at the mouth. Oh Yuan Bao quickly threw away the chair at her hand, then rushed over and demanded of the person who had burst in, Why are you here? Hearing that, he stammered, I heard you shouting. Only then did she calm down and slowly explain, Oh, that? It was part of the script they arranged for me. I had to play along a little. All right, hurry and eat this. If I tell you to eat it, just eat it. Aren't you even going to ask what it is? Hearing that, Pho Duc silently replied in his heart, If you're the one giving it to me, even if it's poison, I'll eat it. Then he suddenly noticed the incense burner not far away. His face changed in horror. It's aphrodisiac incense. How dare they? Are you all right? But the person opposite him still answered casually, Does having tired arms from beating someone count as being unwell? Do these people think my reputation as a playboy is fake? How could they think I wouldn't even recognize aphrodisiac incense? Mini theater. He asked worriedly, Wait, how do you have an antidote for aphrodisiac incense? The person before him replied leisurely, This? I'm a playboy who's mixed with every sort of riffraff imaginable. And she quickly pulled out a whole pile of hidden medicinal supplies. How could I not keep some essential miracle remedies on hand for travel and home use? Meanwhile, Okwon Viet's expression was dark and heavy, his brows tightly furrowed as thoughts raced through his mind. This villa has long been abandoned. Normally no one comes here. Why did Sis deliberately bring that pale-faced pretty boy here? What exactly is she hiding? The moment the two guards at the entrance saw him appear, they immediately panicked and hurriedly blocked his path. Young Master Kwon Viet, why are you here? Seeing that, the anger inside him only rose higher. In a freezing voice, he barked, "Do I need to report to you before coming here? Move aside." After speaking, he didn't wait for them to react before flinging them aside with both hands. Their bodies staggered, nearly falling. The two men exchanged pale looks and whispered anxiously, "Why did he have to come right now? We're finished. If Master finds out, he'll definitely skin us alive." Another forced himself to calm down and said in a low voice, "It's fine. Judging by the timing, it should already be over by now." Just then, a sneaky figure peeking out from the corner of the corridor immediately caught his attention. Okwon Viet narrowed his eyes and shouted, "What are you skulking around for? Where did my sister go?" Hearing herself called out, the maid jolted in fright and turned around. Then, without saying a word, she hurriedly ran off. Seeing that, the person behind her grew even more suspicious and shouted after her, "Hey, why are you running? Stop right there." The commotion instantly drew the attention of the people inside the room. Hearing the noise, Fo Duk said alertly, "Someone's coming. I'll protect you and get you out. Don't worry, I won't let anyone hurt you." But when he reached his hand behind him, he touched nothing. Shocked, he blurted out, "Where did she go?" When he hurriedly turned around, he saw Yuan Bao slowly taking off her own clothes. Her movements were strangely calm. Before he could understand what was happening, she suddenly pressed herself against him. "Hurry and take your clothes off." That action terrified Fo Duk. His whole body stiffened, his face turned bright red, and he shouted, "Miss, don't do this." Did the drug already take effect? Yuan Bao endured a little longer. "I'll take you outside to find a doctor." But before he could finish, the person in front of him glared at him in blazing anger and shouted, "Drub my head. If you're acting, act all the way through, got it? Hurry and take off your outer robe and wrap it around me. Then support me as we go out. In a moment, make a huge scene while you're at it." Hearing that, he finally froze, recovered his senses, and hurriedly nodded, stammering, "Oh, all right." At that moment, she draped herself in his robe and still didn't forget to lower her voice and instruct him, "Just support me and walk me out like this. Remember, you have to look fiercer." As she leaned against that solid chest, she even asked blankly, "Are you that nervous? Why is your heart beating so fast?" The thumping sound was clear right by her ear. She continued, as if reassuring him, "Don't worry. What they want is for us to make a scene. Just charge out angrily and curse whoever you catch." Meanwhile, Fo Duk was screaming inwardly, "I'm not tense because of that. Is it that you don't see yourself as a woman? Or you just don't see me as a man at all?" Right then, the room door was violently kicked open from outside, and Okwon Viet stormed in. The sight before him left Fo Duk stunned. Inwardly, he cried out, "Why is it this brat?" His hands instinctively tightened as he pulled her into his arms. As for Yuan Bao, she was also a little surprised when she saw who had come. But Okwon Viet's face turned pale, his head buzzing as he shouted loudly, "You, all of you." In that instant, Nguyen Bao thought to herself, why did Okwon Viet follow us here too? She absolutely could not let him ruin the plan. So she leaned close and whispered in a Fo Duk's ear, telling him to send Okwon Viet away. The next moment, Okwon Viet rushed over and furiously demanded, "You pretty boy bastard, let my sister go at once." But Fo Duk immediately shifted to shield her, his voice firm. "If you truly want what is best for your sister, then you should go investigate who is trying to harm her, not stand here getting in my way." Having said that, he bent down and scooped Nguyen Bao up in one decisive motion. Seeing this, Okwon Viet instinctively reached out, intending to take her back, but Fo Duk lowered his voice, serious and deep. "Move aside." Okwon Viet froze on the spot, and his eyes unconsciously flicked toward the unconscious man lying on the ground. Nguyen Bao felt a little guilty and murmured, "Actually, you only needed to support me. There's no need to be so dramatic." But Fo Duk paid no attention, his tone still hard. "I think this feels more real." Then he added in a low voice, face flushed red, "Mostly because I wanted to carry you, At the same time, on a rooftop in the distance, dying Chu Man looked down below, then turned and asked the person beside her, who was leisurely drinking tea, "Looks like we don't need to show ourselves anymore." Oka nodded in agreement. "Seems like we really aren't needed anymore. Then let's withdraw." The two had just stood up when their legs went numb, making them lose their balance and stagger, nearly falling. Wah! Fortunately, two hands reached out in time to catch them. "Careful, careful." Only after pulling the other person into his arms did O can let out a breath of relief. That was close. But when both of them realized their current position, they immediately let go in embarrassment. "Sorry, my footing slipped a little." Ahem. The person beside him also replied with a red face. "It's fine. Let's go." At that moment, Okwon Viet hurried over. "Elder sister, can I take a look at you?" But Ongwin Bao coldly refused. "Don't come over here. I don't want to see you right now. Go back." Though her words were so resolute, her gaze still secretly shifted elsewhere, to where the maid who had led her into that room earlier was. Only then did she say in a low voice, "Let's go." Okwon Viet now looked like a little puppy that had been abandoned, calling after her in heartbreak. "Elder sister." Just as the two of them walked out, the two servants immediately panicked at the sight of her. "Me miss you." Before they could finish speaking, her imposing aura silenced them. She exploded completely. "Fo Duk, tie them all up for me." Hearing this, the two servants were scared out of their wits. They turned and ran while shouting, "Run!" At that same moment, Ongwin Bao had already pulled out a leather whip, her eyes as cold as a demon's, chasing after them while lashing the whip. "Still think you can run?" Seeing the situation, dying Chu Man hurriedly appeared. "Miss, let me help you." With someone assisting her, Ongwin Bao immediately instructed, "Chu Man, go easy on them. Just beat them until they're half dead." The two servants were beaten until they rolled on the ground, wailing miserably. "Miss, spare us." Io. That horrifying scene, however, seemed to Fo Duk as if it were covered in a rosy filter. A familiar feeling surged in his heart. Yuan Bao really was still exactly the same as when she was little. Just then, Ongwin Bao spoke decisively. "All right, tie him up and load him onto the carriage to bring back." The two bruised and battered servants were tightly bound, dragging themselves behind the carriage. Inside, dying Chu Man asked worriedly, "Miss, are you all right?" Hearing this, Ongwin Bao hurriedly waved her hand. "I'm Fine. I tore this myself. Where's Okan? Weren't you together?" At that, dying Chu Man's face turned bright red. "Oh, he want to follow that maid. I was going to go with him, but he said he could handle it alone and told me to come here and help you." Ongwin Bao nodded slowly after hearing this. If he said so, then there shouldn't be a problem. Are you very hot? Why is your face so red?" Struck right where it hurt, dying Chu Man became even more flustered. It's probably just stuffy inside the carriage. I'll go outside and help Fo Duk drive." But Ongwin Bao looked at her thoughtfully. "You keep saying you feel hot. Could be excess internal heat. Another day, I'll find a physician to adjust your condition." By the time everyone returned, the two servants had already been tossed onto the ground like sacks. The other servants, seeing this scene, asked in alarm, "Miss, what happened to you?" Ongwin Bao immediately reassured them. "It's nothing. I rub it myself." Drag them inside and interrogate them separately in different rooms. With that, she stormed straight into the residence and shouted, "Where is the second madam? I want to see her." The servants in the residence could not help whispering among themselves at the sight of her. "Heavens, what happened to the eldest miss? Her eyes are all swollen. Looking like this, could it be that she was?" Another person hurriedly tugged the first one's sleeve and whispered, "Oh, hush, hush, hush. Gossiping about the masters behind their backs. Are you tired of living? We can't afford to offend them anyway. Just stay out of the way." Just then, a man with a dark expression was quietly trying to slip away from the back. Ongwin Bao immediately shouted, "My Hong, are you that idol? Come inside with me." Hearing herself called, My Hong trembled inwardly. Had it succeeded? But before she could react, Ongwin Bao had already seized her wrist and dragged her away. "Eldest miss, please be gentler. It hurts." Those words only made Ongwin Bao angrier. "I ought to strangle you." She kicked the door open and strode into Tonham's room. The sudden action startled Tonham badly. "Yuan Bao, what happened to you?" Hearing that, Ongwin Bao let out a cold, mocking laugh. "What happened to me? Wouldn't second madam know best?" Before Tonham could understand, Ongwin Bao turned and slammed the door shut. The scene frightened the people nearby into crying out, "Eldest miss." But Ongwin Bao said nothing. She directly sent a fierce kick into My Hong, knocking her forward and rendering her unconscious. Immediately after, a wadded-up cloth was stuffed straight into my Hung's mouth. The sight left Ton Ham utterly bewildered. What on earth had happened? At this point, chaotic noises kept sounding out. What exactly is going on? I'm Fine. Tie this person up first, then we'll talk later. My Hung gradually came to as well. Seeing herself tightly bound hand and foot, she panicked and struggled nonstop. Ton Ham, standing at the side, merely brushed off her sleeves and, with an easy smile, said, this should do. Looking at the masterpiece before her, Ongwin Bao could not help praising it. You really didn't need to be this thorough. But the woman before her suddenly waved a hand. Wait a moment, I'll go get you a change of clothes. After seeing that she had changed into proper clothes, Tanam finally could not hold back and asked, "Now tell me, what exactly happened?" Ongwen Bao no longer hid it. "Then can you promise first not to scold me?" Afterward, Yuan Bao carefully skirted around the key parts and recounted everything from beginning to end. That's what happened. After hearing the whole story, the anger in the eyes of the person opposite her immediately flared up. Oh, so that's how it is. The scene startled Ongwen Bao. Second mother, Tanham no longer held back. She directly pinched the ears of the person in front of her and scolded, "Ongwin Bao, you little girl, you've grown quite capable, haven't you? Reading too many storybooks, and now you even dare to play the lone hero going to a dangerous meeting by yourself." Ongwin Bao winced in pain and hurriedly cried out, "Ow, ow, ow, it hurts." Second mother, I was wrong. Please mind your elegance a little. Only then did Tanham reluctantly withdraw her hand. Adjusting herself back into the posture of a dignified madam, she said sternly, "Don't call me second mother. Something this serious, and you still dare hide it from me. Is there even still a place for this second mother in your heart?" Seeing the tense atmosphere, the person beside her quickly cut in, "How could there not be? If you don't believe me, just turn around and look. Right now, the only person in my eyes is you." Seeing her look like a little puppy desperately currying favor, Tanham could not help laughing. "That honeyed little mouth of yours. I don't know who you got it from." After that, Ongwin Bao pointed at my home. "I know I was wrong, second mother, so don't be angry anymore. The urgent matter now is to interrogate that maid first." Hearing this, my Hung immediately panicked, and Ongwin Bao pulled the gag out of her mouth. Frowning, she interrogated her. "Speak, who sent you to drive a wedge between me and second mother?" But the person before her stubbornly refused to confess. "Eldest miss, please don't let second madam deceive you. If I have spoken even half a lie, may heaven and earth destroy me." Hearing those words, Ongwin Bao thought to herself that the other side had likely seized control of my Hung's family. Without torture, they probably would not get an answer. Suddenly, the person beside her raised a hand and gently patted her shoulder. "How about I do it?" Ongwin Bao was a little surprised by the suggestion. My Hung, meanwhile, was terrified beyond measure. Second mother, what followed was a miserable scream. After a while, Tanham calmly spoke. "Will you confess now?" The father of Commandery Princess Tanham was Prince Kang, who also oversaw the Ministry of Justice. She had inherited profound family teachings. At this point, my Hung was a complete mess, trembling in fear as she spoke. I'll talk. Seeing this, Ongwin Bao could not help exclaiming in admiration, "Amazing, truly amazing." Hearing that, Tanham laughed softly and asked, "Do you want to learn? I can teach you." Ongwin Bao, however, hesitated a little. Wouldn't it be inappropriate to pass this technique on to an outsider like me? The person beside her hurriedly reassured her. "It's fine. Back then, I also taught your mother." Then she slowly recalled the past, and a trace of sorrow flashed through her eyes. "Elder sister, if only you were still here. Look at our Yuan Bao. How beautifully she has grown." Elsewhere, a figure was thrown into a dark prison cell. Fo Duk held up a candle to illuminate the face of the person opposite him and spoke indifferently. "Who is the one behind you? Speak honestly." The man shouted irritably, "What behind me? I don't know anything." Hearing this, Fo Duk slowly squatted down, thinking to himself, "I have to make this quick. I can't let Yuan Bao think I'm useless." Seeing that action, the man opposite panicked. You, what are you trying to do?" But Fo Duk swiftly grabbed his hair and yanked him closer. His gaze was cold and sharp. "Nothing, just asking questions." After a while, the man lay on the ground, trembling. "You, who exactly are you?" Fo Duk turned to leave, only replying blandly, "Just an ordinary accountant." At this moment, my Hung had been untied and was kneeling on the ground, trembling as she recounted. It was the second master. He heard that master intended to open the ancestral hall and officially enter young Master Quan Viet's name into the family register. So, then she recalled the other party's instructions. They're all brothers, so why should all the benefits go to the main branch? We must think of a way to stop Quan Viet from being officially recorded as Third Master's descendant. Oh, Bao Hong, second cousin of Old Master O, was the one behind it. The person beside him had also quickly chimed in flatteringly. Third Master dotes very much on that girl Yuan Bao. If she and O Quan Viet's mother and son become estranged. Hearing that, he continued with satisfaction. Then Old Third will surely grow disgusted with the main branch and instead choose one of my grandsons as his heir. Hearing that, Ongwen Bao could not help laughing. What kind of second master does he think he is? He really treats us like one big slab of fat meat. Ha ha ha. Everyone wants to take a bite. Is he not afraid of choking to death? Just then, there came a knock at the door. Knock, knock. As soon as the door opened, Pho Duc quickly stepped inside. Miss, that man has confessed. It was this and this and that and that. Then Ong Wen Bao looked at my Hung kneeling on the cold floor and said, the confessions on both sides match. Take her away. Hearing this, my Hung cried out in panic. Huh? Eldest miss, this servant still has something to say. That day, second madam really did bring a packet of poison into madam's room. I swear to heaven, please believe this servant. At those words, Tonham's eyes tightened immediately and her expression darkened. Afraid the other side would not believe her, my Hung hurriedly continued, Miss, I may have been doing work for second master, but I am not lying. The medical record and the packet of medicine were both taken by me from the dressing chest. Second madam, do you dare do it but not dare admit it? Do you dare swear that the poison had nothing to do with you? Her gaze toward the woman opposite her was full of rage, mixed with resentment and unwillingness. But Tonham only silently avoided that gaze, her expression calm to the point of coldness. Only then did Ongwen Bao slowly speak. Enough. Pho Duc, what are you still standing there for? Take this person away. The person behind her promptly answered, yes, Mississippi. Seeing that the person opposite still intended to deal with things this way, my Hung became even more frantic. Miss sighed, but before she could finish, Pho Duc gagged her and dragged her outside. When he saw that she still would not behave and kept struggling, Pho Duc showed no mercy and struck her, knocking her unconscious on the spot. Inside the room, Ongwen Bao finally looked directly at the person before her. Second mother, is there anything you want to say to me? Hearing that, Tonham held her chest and let out a deep sigh. Her voice carried exhaustion. It is only natural that you would suspect me. The medical record and the packet of medicine really were stolen from me by her. And on the night your mother met with misfortune, I really did go to see her. After hearing those words, Ongwen Bao merely shook her head slightly, her expression still calm. No, I never suspected you. I only wanted to hear the reason from your own mouth. Those words shocked Tonham greatly. You don't suspect me? Then the corners of her eyes gradually grew wet, and her voice choked up. I clearly taught you not to trust anyone too much. Seeing her like this, the person opposite her gently interrupted. But second mother is different. I'm not a fool. I could tell whether someone truly treats me well. At that moment, Tonham could no longer contain her emotions. She rushed forward and hugged the person before her, sobbing. Then second mother's love for you was not in vain. Only then did Ongwen Bao slowly speak, her voice light but extremely firm. Second mother, I've grown up now. I have the right to know the things related to my mother. Hearing this, Tonham fell silent for a moment before slowly saying, you are right. You have the right to know. 8 years ago, your maternal family met with disaster, but your father did not divorce his wife. Everyone said the O family did not know how to read the times and would surely be cast aside by His Majesty in disgust. But His Majesty did not reprimand the O family. On the contrary, he personally bestowed a marriage, giving me, Commandery Princess Tonham, to your father as an equal wife. This action displayed His Majesty's magnanimity and also soothed the O family. But in truth, he was deeply suspicious. He wanted to use the O family, yet he could not fully trust them. I was the chess piece he sent to watch over the O family. Not long after, your mother discovered she was pregnant, but she could not rejoice. His Majesty would never allow a child carrying the Ngu family bloodline to be born. But after learning of this, I did not choose to report it. Instead, I decided to help your mother because she and I had known each other since childhood. She was 5 years older than me, and I had always regarded her as my own elder sister. So I gave her a packet of fake death medicine. I hoped to fulfill her wish for freedom and happiness. Clearly, elder sister Ngu was only one step away from getting her wish. It is all because I was not careful enough. I could not save her. Seeing her like this, Ongwin Bao sobbed and shook her head in denial. It wasn't your fault, second mother. It was already extremely risky for you to prepare fake death medicine for my mother. You've suffered all these years. At that moment, Tonham wiped away her tears and gently comforted her. Don't cry. Second mother does not feel wronged. With a status like mine, how could I decide my own marriage? Things are good now. At least I can protect you in elder sister Ngu's stead. But suddenly she stopped, her gaze sharpening as she turned toward the door. Cousin, after listening for so long, are you still unwilling to come in because you still don't trust me? Those words startled Ongwin Bao, and she let out a soft, surprise huh. A creaking sound rang out. Old Master O and Oaken slowly walked in. Grandfather, why are you here? He suddenly asked, his voice full of confusion. Second mother, there is still one thing I don't understand. You and my little aunt were close friends from your boudoir days. That was never a secret. So why would His Majesty choose you to monitor her? Tonham wiped away her tears and replied calmly. But in his eyes, women are only surface-level sisters, people who would fight to the death over men. How could he ever believe in true friendship, in a bond of kindred spirits? Hearing this, he hurriedly bowed. My apologies. I judged a gentleman's heart with a petty man's mind and doubted you. She immediately stepped forward to comfort him. You are Sister Ngu's nephew, which means you are also my nephew. There is no need for family to be so formal. After a while, Ongwin Bao suddenly remembered something. All of this. Grandfather, did you know about this long ago? Hearing her question, he slowly patted her head. If I hadn't known your second mother's character well, how could I ever have dared let her raise you? Then she suddenly shook his hand off, her voice trembling with anger. If grandfather, you already knew mother didn't kill herself, why didn't you investigate back then? Seeing Ongwin Bao so agitated, Okan, standing behind her, frowned slightly and spoke. So that's how it is. You already knew from that year onward, which is why when I wanted to investigate, you kept finding ways to stop me. At this, Tonham quickly stepped forward, her voice low and grave. Yuan Bao, it's not that we didn't want to investigate. It's that we couldn't. The hatred in our hearts is no less than yours. Hearing that, she seemed to suddenly understand something. Her stunned eyes could not hide her shock. Was it because of me? The person beside her could no longer hold back and covered her mouth as she sobbed. At the same time, he understood as well, his eyes reddening with unshed tears. At that time, the court was still purging the so-called loyalists of the Ngu family. If our O family had openly investigated your aunt's death, His Majesty, for the sake of his reputation, would surely have sent people to investigate as well. And if they discovered that the one who should have died was actually me, I'm afraid the entire O family would have faced extermination. She covered her face and continued slowly, her voice choking. It was also to protect me. I concealed the fact that Sister Ngu was pregnant, and I even gave her the fake death medicine. If there had been a thorough investigation, none of this could have been hidden. Suddenly, an aged hand took the hand of the person beside him. Old Master O looked at the two before him with guilt and helplessness in his eyes. Yuan Bao, come here. The dead are already gone, but the living still have to go on living well. As long as all of you are safe, your mother can rest easy in the underworld. That is why, after discussing it with your father, I decided to bury this matter. He stood to the side, covering his face to stop his tears from falling, while she sobbed and said, I understand now. At the same time, outside the room, the servants, standing at a distance, could not help whispering among themselves. Even the old master has been alarmed. Could it be that the eldest young lady really? The person beside him immediately added, it must have been young Master Can. Maybe he did it to fight for the family inheritance or something. But before he could finish, slap, slap, dying two man, standing behind them, angrily hit them as she shouted, what are you all doing gathered here? Are each and every one of you so idle? Fo Duk also stepped forward, his expression dark and cold. You've got some nerve, daring to wag your tongues about your masters behind their backs. Go find the steward and take your punishment yourselves. Otherwise, wait until all of you are sold off. Hearing this, the two of them were so frightened they dropped to their knees and begged. This servant knows his mistake. I would never dare do it again. Seeing this, she could not help glancing at the person beside her in praise. I didn't expect it, you know what you're doing. But he only replied coolly, I'm just bullying people with borrowed authority. If you have time, you'd better read a few more books. At the same moment inside the room, old Mastero slowly said, back then, we investigated in secret and confirmed that it was the second branch. Though we couldn't make him pay with his life, we couldn't just let it go either. So I gave him a little help. Hearing this, Ongwin Bao could not help asking, help? Seeing that she still looked blank, Tonham calmly explained, I helped him completely fall out with the main branch. I helped him get repeatedly demoted on his official path until he had to sell off his family property just to survive. I helped his two worthless sons drown themselves in women and pleasure. Though he himself was left without heirs, his household still ended up full of descendants. The person beside her, hearing all the things he had done, only coughed lightly a few times. The two people opposite him, after hearing everything, cried out in shock. Old Master O's face darkened as he frowned and continued, don't worry. I had already planned to make him pay with his life. These last 2 years, he has been obsessed with elixirs. The toxins in his body have already sunk deep. In the end, he will waste away to skin and bones and die covered in sores. Hearing that, the two of them could not help thinking the same thing. He really is the most formidable one. Afterward, on the way back, the two of them looked helplessly at the smiling person in front of them. Pho Duc stared at the figure walking ahead for a long while before finally asking, since leaving the O residence, Miss hasn't said a single word. She didn't even care about dealing with those servants. What happened? The person beside him was no less worried. I don't know either, but only when Miss is heartbroken does she become like this, wandering down the street aimlessly. At that moment, looking at her back, he thought to himself, how can I make her feel a little better? I've got it. Keep a close eye on Mississippi. I'll go and come right back. After saying that, he ran off. Hearing this, Dying Chu Man stared blankly and blurted out, After a while, a voice suddenly called out from behind, Miss. The two of them quickly turned around, and a butterfly-shaped candy figurine was held out before her. Pho Duc spoke slowly, have some candy. It'll brighten your mood. Ongwen Bao looked at the candy in surprise. It's molded sugar candy. Pho Duc, you really are the best partner in the world. Hearing that, he froze. Me? Then he looked sadly to the side, thinking helplessly. So in the end, I'm still only a partner? But not far away. A figure watched quietly with gentle eyes, thinking to himself, I haven't even eaten anything, so why do I suddenly feel full? At that moment, Dying Chu Man gloomily thought, I should be under the carriage, not here playing the third wheel. Suddenly, a small stone was tossed over. She caught it at once, tilted her head, and looked in that direction. Oken was already standing there waiting. He hurriedly waved her over. Come here. But on this side, Ongwen Bao was still in low spirits. Seeing that, Pho Duc spoke up with a suggestion, Miss, would you like to go do something fun to cheer yourself up? In his palm were a few gleaming dice. At the sight of them, she backed away in alarm. What are you doing? Trying to lure me into a gambling house, so I'll make a mistake? Hearing that, he simply replied calmly, so that's what Miss thinks of me. That truly hurts my heart. I have always belonged to Mississippi. I only hoped Miss could be a little happier. Hearing that, she suddenly remembered someone's faint voice. Oh right, the traitor among us is Dying Chu Man. In her mind, she saw Dying Chu Man hugging a pile of glittering gold. Yet inwardly, she grew conflicted. I really am itching to play. But I'm afraid that the moment I go, Chu Man will run off to tell grandfather and sell me out for a reward. She quickly turned around and looked behind her. Where's Chu Man? In another hidden corner, she frowned and asked the person beside her, what do you want with me? Hearing this, he replied indifferently, you claim to want your young lady to have a good romance, yet you have so little sense? That boy's feelings for Yuan Bao, I'm afraid only Yuan Bao herself can't see them. At those words, she blushed and sighed. That's true. Miss really is too slow when it comes to this. As an outstanding maid, I really should give her a little push. Hearing that, the person beside her looked at her with affectionate amusement and said softly, you really are something. Over here, Ongwen Bao asked softly, did you send Chu Man away? But the man before her only looked at her in silence. His deep gaze made her feel inexplicably flustered. What is it? He suddenly leaned closer and raised his hand, gently wiping a smear of candy from her cheek. You got some on you. That scene nearly made the person in front of him short-circuit. Thank you, let's go. Seeing that reaction, he was briefly stunned. then unconsciously licked the sugar he had wiped away from his fingertip. So sweet. After a while, she suddenly said excitedly, "Two-man isn't here, so let's go have fun." The person beside her immediately went along with it. At your command. Both of them were in extremely high spirits now. She shook the dice and rolled a big win. 666. Big win. Pay up. Meanwhile, he stood to one side, collecting the money into a pouch. After that, the two of them went horse riding together. Faster. Then they stopped at a tavern. "Boss, your best wine." Ongwen Bao tipped her head back and drained the cup in one gulp, then looked up at the night sky and asked softly, "Do you think heaven really exists in this world? Will bad people really get their retribution?" The person beside her replied without hesitation, "They definitely will." Hearing that, she huffed and retorted, "You don't even know who I'm talking about, and you're already so certain?" Fo Duk slowly said, "Because I believe heaven's justice is clear and retribution never errs." But inwardly he thought, "Because as long as you want it, I will make sure he gets what he deserves." Suddenly, a hand reached over and snatched the wine flask from his grasp. "I hope so. I've finished my wine." Seeing her drink from the exact spot where he had just drunk, his face turned bright red. "Hey, that's where I drank from." His voice grew softer and softer. Elsewhere, servants were carrying Bao Hong's sedan chair along the street, but above them on the rooftops, two figures flickered in and out of sight. Suddenly, both of them jolted and turned to look at each other. You two? They had come with the same thought, to do something to make Yuan Bao happy, and by fate's teasing arrangement, they had run into each other. Then they looked at each other's clothes and spoke in unison. "What a coincidence. You were planning to pretend to be a ghost too." The atmosphere instantly turned eerie and sinister. Ahead, a wavering crimson light suddenly appeared, frightening the sedan bearers so badly that their faces went pale and they trembled as they screamed, "A ghost! A ghost! Run!" The moment they said it, they panicked, threw down the sedan chair, and scattered without looking back. Bao Hong, left behind, painfully propped himself up. Just then, a figure dressed in brilliant red, with long hair hanging loose, slowly stepped out from the darkness. "Give me back my life." He was so terrified that his soul seemed to leave his body as he shrieked, "A ghost! A ghost!" The figure slowly approached step by step, and a dark, icy voice rang out. "Old bastard, look carefully. Who am I?" Hearing that familiar voice, the man opposite trembled in terror, his legs going weak as he struggled to speak. "Enenjiu, Madame Go." He frantically crawled backward. "I was blinded by evil spirits. I wronged you. I'll burn paper money for you. I'll pray for you to be reborn somewhere good." But at that moment, another scarlet figure suddenly appeared right in front of Bao Hong, making his entire body freeze stiff. "Why you flew over here too? If you don't kill me, don't kill me." But just as that cold hand with its long, pointed nails was about to touch him, the man before was already so frightened that he stammered. Before he could finish, he fainted outright. Seeing this, the person behind put a hand on her hip and said with contempt, "I really wish Miss could see this wretch's pathetic state with her own eyes." Then she quickly ran forward. Dying Two-Man brushed back her hair, her face bright with excitement. "I didn't expect your ghost disguise to be this convincing." As Oken slowly removed the fake nails from his hand, he replied, "When I was little, my elder sister used to pretend to be a ghost and scare me all the time. Whenever I saw a scene like this back then, all I could do was sigh helplessly. Here we go again." At the time, Oken really had been so bothered by them, he was nearly driven mad. But now, he missed that feeling terribly. He wished they could scare him a few more times. After a long while, Bao Hong came to and screamed, "A ghost! Don't come over here! Don't come over here!" But after gradually calming down, he realized he was the only one left around. The ghost. "The ghost is gone? I'm not dead. I'm not dead. Those damned servants actually dared to abandon me and run. Let's see if I don't skin them alive when I get back." But before he could finish cursing, Ongwen Bao suddenly threw a sack over his head. This made him furious to the extreme, and he roared, "Who is it? Who are you? What do you want?" At that moment, the flames of hatred in her heart had completely overwhelmed her reason. "Why should my mother be dead, while you, the murderer, still get to live? Grandfather may endure it, but I can't. If I don't beat you half to death, I won't be able to calm my heart." With that thought, her fists rained down nonstop on his body. Every blow carried all her hatred. In the end, she added one savage kick, sending him flying straight into a tree. After a long while, Bao Hong, bruised all over, crawled out of the sack. "Which bastard dared hit me? Once I find out, I'll kill your whole family." But just then, a cold dagger was suddenly pressed against his neck from behind. A calm voice rang out, "Don't move." Fo Duk appeared behind him, staring at the old man with icy eyes. He thought to himself, this damned beast actually dared try to ruin Yuan Bao's innocence. Too bad I still can't let you die just yet. With that thought, he suddenly twisted hard and dislocated the man's arm. Bao Hong's miserable scream rang through the night. Looking at the man lying on the ground, unable to move, he casually brushed off his hands. Tomorrow I'll find a way to bring Yuan Bao to see him. When she sees how pathetic he looks, she'll definitely be delighted. The more he thought about it, the more pleased he became. The next morning, drowsiness hung over the O residence. Everyone looked exhausted. Seeing the people who had been summoned, Tonham asked, what important matter could possibly be worth dragging me up this early? At that moment, she recalled what had happened earlier. Half an incense stick ago, Ongwen Bao had been pounding on the residence gate and shouting, "Grandfather, second mother, I figured it out." Only then did Fo Duk slowly explain, Miss didn't wake up early. She didn't sleep all night. If I hadn't stopped her, she would have come knocking at midnight. Hearing this, the two people opposite him were immediately puzzled. How do you know she didn't sleep all night? At the same time, both Okan and Dain Chu-man cried out in shock. You two were together all night? Suddenly, she lifted her head and said, frankly, that's right. I thought about it all night. I still can't accept it. Why should that old Bao Hong get to walk free? Hearing that, old Master O fell silent for a moment and then said slowly, Yuan Bao, I understand how you feel. But before he could finish, she cut him off firmly. I know Mother's case can't be brought up again, but I still have to ruin him completely. I want to accuse him of murdering for money and of plotting to violate my chastity. Hearing this, Tonham hurriedly tried to stop her. No, even if you weren't actually violated, people in this world only like malicious speculation. They don't care about the truth. Your reputation will be completely ruined. The person beside her immediately nodded in agreement. Your second mother is right. Are you sure you want to do this? But the person opposite him still did not hesitate and declared firmly, I'm certain. As for that thing called honor, I never had it to begin with. Hearing that, he suddenly rose and slowly walked over. He looked at his granddaughter with gentle, loving eyes. Very well, then go do what you want to do. As long as you stop idling around and wasting your days, I'll support whatever you do. His words settled her heart at once, because the one who had been loafing around all day yesterday was precisely her. That matter was set aside for the moment. After that, in front of the Yamen gates, Nguyen Bao strode forward aggressively when someone behind her suddenly called out to stop her. Miss, wait a moment. The trial will take a long time, and you haven't had breakfast yet. At least eat this to fill your stomach first. She took the still-warm pastry and bit into it heartily. It's delicious. Fo Duk looked at her with a gentle, reassuring gaze and said, Don't worry, I'm here. Encouraged by that, her fighting spirit surged even higher. All right, let's go. After the drum was struck to open the court, the sharp rap of the court block rang out with authority. Who stands below? Why do you not kneel before this official? Hearing that, he calmly replied, My lady is a commandery lady personally enfeoffed by his majesty. This humble one is unremarkable, but I am the advocate in this case and also hold scholarly rank, so neither of us is required to kneel. At the same time, the person beside him presented the complaint. Your subject, Ongwen Bao, accuses O Bao Hong, my second granduncle within the clan, of plotting to seize the O family property and attempting to destroy my chastity. The onlookers who had come for excitement immediately erupted in whispers. How could she even have the face to say such a thing? She's been causing trouble all day long. She lost her purity ages ago, didn't she? If it were me, I'd have hanged myself long ago. All those malicious words reached Dain Chu-man's ears. Furious, she raised her fist and shouted, What nonsense are you spouting? I'll beat you right now. Ongwen Bao also frowned and looked that way, but before she could see clearly, a tall figure stepped in front of her and blocked her view. Fo Duk looked coldly at those gossiping people and said with a frown, The magistrate hasn't even delivered his verdict yet, and you already know the truth? Do you think you're more capable than the magistrate? Under the laws of our dynasty, maliciously slandering others is punishable by 20 strokes of the cane. If anyone wants a beating, then by all means keep talking. Hearing that, the official seated in court slammed the table and shouted, Order. You there, go summon the defendant, O Bao Hong. The runners immediately answered, Yes, sir, and hurried off. But before long, they returned looking troubled and helpless. Your Honor, O Bao Hong is outside beating the drum to appeal his grievance. At this, the magistrate's expression twisted unpleasantly. At first, let him in. Even the people watching the spectacle were shocked, and all turned to look behind them, murmuring, "Oh my, this is." At that moment, a wheelchair was slowly pushed into the courtroom, and Bao Hong appeared before everyone, wrapped in bandages from head to toe. Seeing this, she covered her mouth in surprise and thought, was I really that heavy-handed last night? Could it be? My whirling kick technique has improved? The magistrate was equally astonished and blurted out, "What is that thing? Oh no, what person is that?" At once, a servant hurriedly knelt beside the wheelchair and sobbed, "My master encountered villains last night and was beaten into this state. I beg your honor to uphold justice for my master." The man lying in the wheelchair let out a few groans, as if in response. Seeing this, Pho Duc merely said calmly, "It seems second master has behaved improperly and offended quite a few people." At his words, the servant behind the chair immediately shouted angrily, "Who are you to speak of my master like that?" Seeing her side being shouted at, Ongwin Bao stepped forward. "If your master can do such things, why can't my Pho Duc say them?" Faced with her imposing presence, the man immediately shrank and stammered, "Eldest miss, why are you here?" Her face turned cold as she replied, "Don't try to claim kinship with me just because it suits you. Call me the plaintiff." Hearing that, the servant tried to appeal to morality. "Miss O, what are you saying? My master is your second granduncle." But the person before him pointed straight at Bao Hong and shouted back, "The one I am suing is exactly this so-called venerable second granduncle of high standing who behaves without the slightest shame." At that moment, Pho Duc slowly stepped forward and spoke clearly, "Second Master O's plight is pitiable indeed, but please proceed with the hearing." Then the man seated above in the courtroom spoke with authority. "Suspect Bao Hong, Ongwin Bao accuses you of attempting to destroy her chastity. Do you admit your crime?" Suddenly, Pho Duc looked at Bao Hong with a cold, threatening gaze. "If you confess now, you may still receive leniency. Otherwise, at your age, do you really intend to attain immortality in prison?" Even so, the old man stubbornly shouted, "Get lost!" But just as the other party raised his hand, Pho Duc swiftly caught it. A sharp pain shot straight through Bao Hong's body to his brain, making his face turn deathly pale. Yet the man opposite him only smiled and reminded him, "Second Master, if you get so agitated, be careful not to fall out of your seat." Then, with a sudden flick of force, he let go and quickly turned to Bao with folded hands. "Your Honor, we have already prepared all the witnesses and material evidence." Seeing Bao Hong lurch sideways, the servant cried out in alarm, "Master, master!" The official above nodded and ordered, "Bring them up." Pho Duc then calmly carried the evidence forward. "These are the witness statements and the lingering incense used for poisoning. Please review them, Your Honor." The magistrate lowered his head and carefully read the testimony, while Bao Hong's face grew paler and paler with fear. After a while, the man above slammed the table and shouted angrily, "The witnesses and evidence are all complete. Bao Hong, your audacity knows no bounds. Why do you still not confess?" Hearing those words, Pho Duc immediately raised his voice in praise. "Your Honor, upright and incorruptible, truly a living blue sky judge. If any of you good townsfolk have ever been bullied by this villain Bao Hong, you may seize this chance and ask this great just official to uphold justice for you. The O family will pay everyone's litigation expenses." Hearing that, the crowd watching the excitement became even more unsettled and noisy. "Really?" At the same time, Bao Hong was so enraged that he coughed up blood and gritted his teeth. "Why you're vicious." But Pho Duc only replied indifferently, "If you haven't done evil, why fear being sued? Though it seems Second Master has done quite a bit of evil, hasn't he?" Suddenly, she crouched down beside him. The unexpected action made him tremble in fright, and the servant beside him cried out in panic, "Why what do you want to do? This is a court of law." But the person before him only smiled and replied, "Don't worry. I sincerely hope you live a little longer. If you don't live a little longer, how will you die in suffering?" After that, she had to struggle her way out through the chaotic, jostling crowd. Behind her, loud cries of grievance rose one after another. "My lord, please uphold justice for us too. Us as well. I want to sue him." At that moment, Ongwin Bao's eyes lit up when she saw Old Master O and Tan Ham appear ahead. "Grandfather, second mother, why are you here?" Seeing her run over, he took out a bundle and placed it in her hands. "You've grown up now. Grandfather can rest easy in trusting this matter to you." His action left her bewildered for a moment. When she opened it, she found documents and seals inside. After reading them, she asked in even greater surprise, "You wanted to go to Tengzhong Prefecture to negotiate the new cloth business?" The person opposite her slowly explained, "A new weaving technique has appeared in Tengzhong Prefecture. It can produce fabric with more intricate patterns and greater durability. I trust your abilities enough to believe you can successfully negotiate a partnership." Hearing this, she suddenly became wary and asked, "You're not worried that I won't be able to withstand the gossip and deliberately sending me away to avoid the scandal for a while, are you?" He did not deny it and answered frankly, "That was indeed part of the consideration. But this business truly does need someone to go and negotiate. Don't tell me you lack confidence." At that, she frowned and retorted, using provocation on me, "I'm not that childish." But before she could finish saying whether she would go or not, the papers in her hands were swiftly snatched away by someone else. From behind, Oken raised his brows and reminded her, "Although our relationship has eased, our wager still stands. If you don't want to go, then I won't hold back." As soon as he finished speaking, she became agitated at once, immediately snatching the papers back and shouting, "Who said I wasn't going?" Ongwin bowed, then said seriously, "You're right. The bet between you and me still stands. I will absolutely not lose to you." Hearing that, Oken applauded in praise. "Not bad spirit, but I won't go easy on you either." She made a face at him and teased, "Then definitely don't go easy on me. Don't wait until I win and then say you let me." But in his eyes there flashed the image of his twin elder sister from years ago, and he could not help thinking that competitive streak really is exactly like elder sister. Then she turned to the person behind her and said, "Although I don't think I need to hide away, if it will put your mind at ease, I'll go. I'll negotiate the business carefully and absolutely won't let you down." Hearing that, old Master O nodded in satisfaction. "Grandfather believes in you. You've had a talent for business since childhood. You just never applied yourself properly to studying." Those words of praise only made her even more pleased with herself. "I'm your biological granddaughter. Of course, I'm a bit better than outsiders." At the same time, Fo Duk, who had been vigorously squeezing his way forward, spoke up. "Please allow me to accompany. Mississippi business negotiations require drafting contracts and calculating accounts. I could be of help." Hearing that, she replied delightedly, "I knew saving you back then wasn't for nothing." From behind, Dying Two Man also raised her hand excitedly. "Me too." But before she could finish, another hand stopped her. Then a strong force dragged her backward. Oken leaned close and whispered, "What are you going for?" But the person opposite him nodded firmly in reply. "That's right." Then she rushed enthusiastically straight to Ongwin Bao. "I'll also help Miss keep a good watch over the cloth shop. You can go negotiate with Fo Duk without worry." Seeing that, he muttered under his breath, "That brat from across the way." Meanwhile, Ongwin Bao raised a finger approvingly. "Especially keep a close eye on that guy across the way." Suddenly, a familiar voice sounded from behind. "Cease." The voice made her heart jolt in alarm. This voice, Oquan Viet, stood there with his hands on his hips, glaring angrily at the person before him. The moment she saw him, she panicked even more inside. "Oh no, why is he here?" But he had already rushed over and began questioning her without the slightest restraint. "Sis, you went too far. Such a huge thing happened, and you actually dared to hide it from me? Do you even still treat me as your younger brother?" Faced with the barrage of accusations, she awkwardly began, "Well, this," while her eyes hurriedly searched everywhere for help. But Tonham only covered her mouth in surprise and asked, "Quan Viet, why are you here?" At that moment, Ongwin Bao thought silently, "Second mother, forgive me." Then she quickly hid behind Tonham and shouted, "Second mother said we weren't allowed to tell him. Of course I had to listen to second mother." Having a black pot dumped on her head, Tonham stared blankly at the girl beside her, while the one opposite exclaimed in shock, "What?" Tonham sighed helplessly and explained, "Yes, I didn't want you to know. You're still young. Such filthy matters shouldn't stain your ears." As she spoke, she took the blame that had just been tossed on her by the person behind her, seeing that someone else had accepted fault in her place. Ongwin Bao suddenly let out a soft giggle. Hearing this, he frowned and protested. I'm already 15 years old. I'm not a child anymore. I can protect my sister too. Ongwin Bao immediately raised one finger in approval. As expected of my good little brother. All the love I've given you wasn't wasted. If anything happens next time, I'll definitely let you protect me. Hearing that, Tonham instantly frowned, picked up a small hammer, and gave the person behind her a knock on the head. Pet, pet, pet. Children shouldn't talk so carelessly. What do you mean next time? There must not be a next time. After being hit and left with several bumps on her head, Ongwin Bao crossed her arms sulkily and thought, what child is as grown as I am? But in a mother's eyes, no matter how big you get, you're still a child. Early the next morning, the atmosphere outside the cloth shop was lively and bustling. Dying Chu-man was busy loading heavy bundles one by one onto the horse carriage. Ongwin Bao had always been direct and impatient by nature. Once she said she would leave, she truly set out the very next morning. At the same time, Okwon Viet appeared from afar and asked, Chu-man, where are you going? Hearing that, she answered casually, not me. Miss is going out to negotiate business. You made it just in time to see her off. If you were any later, Miss would already have left. Hearing this, his eyes widened as he looked toward the shop entrance. At that moment, Ongwin Bao was patting the person beside her on the shoulder and laughing. You're even good at packing luggage. With you on this trip, I can feel at ease. Hearing that, Fo Duk calmly replied, these are all things I should do. Suddenly, those words reached the ears of someone not far away, and he lunged over in alarm, firing off questions. Wait, what did you say? You're not going with my sister? Then the two of them are going alone? The person beside him stared blankly and retorted, what are you thinking? Of course not. At this, Okwon Viet let out a quiet sigh of relief. That's good. Dying Chu-man then added flatly, this is a long journey with dangerous mountain roads. They naturally have to bring guards. But the more he heard, the more panicked he became. Isn't that still the two of them traveling separately from everyone else? And for 2 whole months? No, I won't allow it. Just then, she asked, Quan Viet, did you come to see me off? He hurried over and replied, Sis, I want to go with you. The person opposite him reached out and rubbed his head comfortingly. I'm not going sightseeing. What would you come for? Be good and stay home to study. I'll bring you a gift when I return. Hearing that, he puffed out his cheeks and objected, Sis, I'm not a child anymore. Let me come with you. But before he could finish, the coachman called out loudly, Miss, you may board now. Aungwen bao ansua bariki anzai. Seeing that, the person beside her hurriedly tried to stop her. Sis, wait. However, Fo Duk quickly blocked him and said in a low voice, Young master, you'd better not make trouble. You'll only delay Mrs. departure. As he spoke, he tightened his grip hard on the other's shoulder. At the same time, she had already boarded the carriage and turned back to call loudly through the window, Fo Duk, hurry up. Seeing himself being blocked, he shouted angrily, move aside. Fo Duk cast a glance at someone nearby and quietly ordered, stop him. She answered crisply, understood. At that moment, Okwon Viet ran after the carriage while shouting, Sis, cease. Sis, wait. I can go ask mother again and get her to let me come. The person beside him hurriedly tried to dissuade him. Young master, please stop making a fuss. Okan, drawn by the commotion, came out to watch and asked with a laugh, Isn't that Quan Viet? What are you making such a racket about? As the two people held him fast, he yelled at the top of his lungs, Let me go. His behavior left the two beside him speechless, not knowing how to handle him. In all 18 years of her life, this was the first time Nguyen Bao had ever traveled far from home. Everything she saw felt fresh and new. The scenery unfolding on both sides of the road stirred the heart. Nguyen Bao leaned out through the carriage window, her curious eyes sweeping over every stretch of landscape. Suddenly she cried out, Ah, sheep, I've never seen wild sheep before. They're so cute. Her eyes were sparkling with rare excitement as she stared at the flock in the distance, leisurely grazing on the grass. Then she hurriedly called to Fo Duk, Stop the carriage, stop the carriage. Hearing the commotion, he turned around in confusion to look at the person behind him. Miss, why have you come outside? The carriage came to a complete stop by the roadside, and she hurriedly waved at the sheep. A radiant expression, rarely seen on her face, bloomed there as she even mimicked their cry. Bah! The sheep all lifted their heads in unison. Ba ba. That scene made her cry out excitedly. Oh my God, they're responding to me. They really responded to me. Seeing this, Fo Duk spoke up to remind her, Be careful or you'll fall. But at that moment, his eyes were filled only with the other person's bright, lively, smiling face. and he couldn't help but laugh under his breath. Ha ha, this is just too adorable. He couldn't help thinking to himself, Mrs. Far Too Cute. But Nguyen Bao's happy moment did not last long, because she got motion sick from the carriage ride. Her face turned pale, and her whole body went limp as she clutched a small basin and kept retching. The smell of medicine mixed with vomit made it all the more unpleasant. Suddenly, a clean handkerchief was held out in front of her. Actually, I know a little medicine. Dizziness can be eased through acupressure. Will Miss like to try? Hearing what Pho Duc said, the person opposite him sounded a little aggrieved and resentful. Why didn't you say so earlier? Hurry up. Then he bent down, decisively and neatly taking off her shoes. The action startled Nguyen Bao. What are you doing? Hearing that, he only explained calmly. To press the Tai Chi acupoint, of course I have to remove your shoes. In this spot too, it's called Zusanli. But Nguyen Bao's gaze was not on where he was pointing. Instead, she unconsciously looked up at his face, so close to hers. Inwardly, she couldn't help sighing in admiration. This face really does get more handsome the longer I look at it. How can every single feature match my taste so perfectly? Suddenly, he looked up and asked, well, do you feel a little better now? But in doing so, their foreheads accidentally touched. They were so close that their breaths tangled together. Both of their gazes suddenly froze, and the atmosphere turned indescribably rosy. Blushing, she hurriedly looked away, her voice growing smaller. It does seem like I'm not dizzy anymore. The person before her also showed a rare trace of awkwardness. If you're fine now, then let's continue on our way. But just as he was about to leave, she quickly reached out to stop him. Wait. Just then, the carriage behind them jolted and came to a stop. She lost her balance and pitched forward. Seeing this, Pho Duc cried out in alarm. Careful. However, she accidentally grabbed hold of his robe. The sudden pull yanked his clothing open, exposing the firm chest beneath, and the air seemed to freeze for a moment. Then she flushed scarlet in panic. But he only calmly held the hand of the person before him, his voice steady as he reminded her, please be careful, Mississippi. I'm not going anywhere. If you have something to say it slowly. Hearing that, she thought to herself, what are you smiling at? Am I really that funny? But when her eyes met that handsome face again, she suddenly turned away in annoyance, her tone carrying a touch of stubbornness. I don't want to ride in the carriage anymore. I want to ride a horse. In a quiet courtyard far from the main road, a white pigeon carrying a message tube flew down onto the windowsill. The person inside quickly reached out to receive it, opened it, and read, the ruined family son is infatuated with filthy places. Send people to clean them out and take the opportunity to act. The ruined family son must avoid drawing attention. Then that person quickly lowered his head and reported, should this subordinate send men to eliminate her while we have the chance? The person behind the thin curtain slowly spoke, their voice cold and devoid of emotion. No need. Right now, she's more useful alive. As for O Fu Hong, that useless sword is not worth keeping. Continue monitoring that illegitimate son named Oaken closely. After hearing the order, the subordinate hurriedly answered, yes. But suddenly, as if remembering something, the person inside spoke again. Wait. I recall there's still a discarded chess piece. They must hate Nguyen Bao very much. Send someone to lend them a hand. In a quiet little courtyard, the steady sound of reading aloud could be heard. The affairs of the kings Yao, Shun, Yu, and Tang are long past. By the time of the Zhou dynasty, the records become even more detailed. The reading blended with the sound of the gentle wind passing through the corridor. Suddenly, an unusual noise outside caught O Quan Viet's attention. He paused for a beat, then quickly clutched his stomach and cried out, ouch, teacher, I think I have a stomachache. Hearing this, the person sitting inside the room immediately panicked. Huh, are you all right? But he had already hurriedly bowed and run off. It's fine. I'll just go to the latrine for a moment. The moment he stepped out into the corridor, a servant hiding behind a pillar hurriedly called to him, young master. Hearing the call, he immediately walked over. What is it? The servant leaned in and whispered. Young Master Trin secretly left the city at dawn. After meeting up with more than 10 fierce-looking men outside the city, they all headed in the direction of Eldest Miss. Hearing this, Okwon Viet's expression changed. He cried out in alarm. What are you standing there for? Prepare horses at once, gather a group of skilled men, and come with me to chase them down. At the same time, the tutor, still sitting in the room, muttered blankly, how long has it been? Why hasn't Quan Viet come back yet? Dusk gradually settled, dyeing the whole horizon red. Birds filled the sky as they searched for places to perch. At that moment, Ong Gwyn Bao was riding on horseback across an open field. She raised her bow and aimed straight ahead. In an instant, a pheasant was struck and rolled to the ground. Seeing that, she was too stunned to believe it. I hit it. Her heart stirred excitedly. This is my first time hunting, and I already hit one. Oh my God, I really am a genius. Then she looked at the remaining chickens with eager killing intent and said, tonight, we're eating roast chicken. What followed was a burst of chaos, with footsteps and shouting ringing out one after another. A while later, a fragrant roast chicken was set out, and the aroma made her stomach rumble. Sitting beside it, she stared without blinking and said, it smells so good. Can't we eat it yet? But Pho Duc, sitting beside her, quickly raised a hand to stop her, his calm voice sounding out. It's almost done. Hearing this, she couldn't help swaying excitedly. Roast chicken. But when he saw the sparkling eyes of the person opposite him, just like a little gluttonous girl, he suddenly pulled her closer, and his expression instantly turned wary. Someone's coming. Judging by the footsteps, there are quite a few of them. However, the person beside him was still holding a chicken drumstick in her hand, and the sudden action startled her so badly that she dropped it to the ground. My drumstick. At the same time, the guards accompanying them quickly picked up their weapons and shouted in unison, who goes there? But Ong Gwyn Bao only looked sadly at the dusty drumstick lying on the ground and whispered softly, roast chicken. At that same moment, a group of riders charged out from the twilight, hoofbeats pounding. It's them. Attack! Pho Duc immediately urged her, get on the horse. With your riding skills, they won't be able to catch up. But she still had not quite processed it and asked blankly, huh? They're here for me? Fine, I'll lure them away. Hearing this, he became the one left stunned. Huh? No, that's not. Before he could finish, the person before him had already spurred her horse and galloped off, leaving a cloud of dust behind. As she rode, she frowned in thought. No, the other guards know martial arts and can protect themselves, but Pho Duc is just a scholar, too weak to trust a chicken. In the middle of a chaotic fight, I'm afraid he won't be able to save his life. Thinking of this, she immediately pulled the reins and turned the horse back, urgently calling out, Pho Duc, hold on tight to me. Get on. Hearing her call, he panicked and hurriedly hid the weapon concealed in his sleeve, then quickly vaulted up onto the horse with her. At the same time, the scene ahead had become utterly chaotic, the clash of weapons ringing out nonstop. But just as they turned their backs and prepared to flee, a figure in the distance raised a bow and aimed straight at them. The arrow tore through the air, shooting toward them, but he instantly flicked out a coin and knocked it aside. Hearing movement behind her, she asked blankly, what was that? He immediately changed the subject, his voice still calm. Nothing. Receiving that answer, she became excited, tightened her grip on the reins, and said, I'm about to speed up. Hold on tight to me. Hearing this, he hesitated a little, but very quickly reached out and wrapped his arms tightly around the waist of the person before him, answering in a low voice, all right. At that moment, the dense forest rang with the sharp, non-stop clashing of weapons. The masked man, riding while gritting his teeth, shouted, a bunch of useless trash. They got away. Hurry after them. Ong Gwyn Bao's servants immediately roared with killing intent. We can't let him go after Miss. Stop him. As the horse shot through the forest, a figure from the side suddenly threw a dagger toward him. The blade instantly lodged in his back. The masked man staggered, nearly falling from his horse, but his eyes remained vicious and savage as he thought, Ong Gwyn Bao, I want you to die a miserable death. At that moment, he dragged himself forward step by heavy step, blood continuously spilling onto the ground and leaving long smeared streaks along the road. At the same time, Okwon Viet arrived just in time and shouted loudly, go help them, take them alive. The servants of the O residence quickly threw themselves into the fierce melee, while he rode off in another direction. Filled with unease, he searched all through the carriage and anxiously called out, Sister, sister, are you all right? But the carriage was empty. There was no one inside. The sight turned him pale with fright, and he loudly demanded, what's going on? Where's my sister? Hearing this, one of the men restraining a black-clad attacker spoke up to reassure him. Young master, don't worry. Miss is fine. We were tasked with holding these men back, so Miss could escape first. Only one man went after her, but this subordinate already injured him. Only then did he let out a slight sigh of relief. That's true. His sister had always been smart and vigilant, but someone was still chasing her, so they had to find her quickly. At that moment, another servant rode over and hurriedly said, "Don't worry, young master. Miss is not alone. Mr. Foe is with her." Hearing this, he frowned even more tightly and said through clenched teeth, "Which way did they go?" "Lead the way." In the dense forest, the crackling sound of dry branches being stepped on rang out ceaselessly. Suddenly, a voice sounded amid the falling rain. "We've run this far already. We probably shook them off by now, right?" As she spoke, Bao unconsciously noticed that the other person was standing very close to her. Her face suddenly flushed, and she quickly turned away awkwardly, saying, "It looks like it's about to rain." That beauty and shy expression made the person in front of her feel a little awkward as well. "We need to find a place to shelter from the rain." Hearing this, he immediately nodded and replied, "Miss is right." Deep in the forest stood a dilapidated house. Outside, the rain fell without stop and cold gusts of wind blew past. At that moment, the two of them hurriedly ran there as well. She pointed ahead and said uncertainly, "Am I seeing things? Is that a hut up ahead?" The person beside her, raising a hand to shield against the rain, answered, "You're not mistaken. Let's go in there and take shelter." Then he carefully pushed open the rotten wooden door. Inside, it was pitch black. The person beside him could not help whispering uneasily, "It smells so damp and moldy." At that moment, he quickly took out a fire striker to light the space within. "I'll go in first and take a look. Wait for me at the door." Seeing this, the person behind him hurriedly grabbed his hand to stop him. "Don't. I'll go in with you." Hearing that, he fell silent in thought for a moment before replying, "All right, then follow behind me. Hold on tightly to me." The person behind him softly answered at once. Inside the hut, everything was in a messy disorder, and the smell of damp mold rushed straight into their noses. The two walked close together, step by cautious step, when suddenly she stepped on something. Crack! The dry, brittle sound startled her so badly that she threw herself straight into the arms of the person beside her. Foduk frowned and asked, "What is it?" Trembling in his arms, she stammered on the G ground. "There's a SK skull." When he saw clearly under the firelight what it was, he quickly reassured Bao, "Don't be afraid. It's a sheep." Hearing this, she still had not recovered and asked in panic, "A sheep?" It took quite a while before she gradually calmed down. Only then did she realize she was holding the person opposite her tightly, and she gave a startled little cry. Seeing this, he only reminded her gently, "Don't panic. Be careful." After checking the surroundings, he drew a conclusion. This should be a hut built by hunters to use when they come into the mountains. But when he saw that the person behind him still did not respond, he quickly turned and called, "Miss." Yet she was covering her face, seeming still immersed in her own embarrassment as she softly answered, But inwardly, she kept thinking, what did I just do? Outside, the rain still poured down heavily without stopping. Foduk bent over to start a fire while carefully helping Bao dry her drenched clothes. After a while, he slowly said, "They're almost dry now. You can put them on, Mississippi." But when he turned back to look at the person behind him, he discovered that she was dazed, absent-minded, her face flushed bright red. Sweat kept pouring from her continuously. Seeing this, he hurried forward in alarm and reached out to touch her forehead. "It doesn't seem that hot." "Wake up, Bao." At that moment, the person before him suddenly grabbed his hand and shouted, "What are you doing?" Hearing this, he quickly explained, "I thought you had a fever. That's my chicken drumstick. Don't try to steal it from me." As soon as she finished speaking, she lowered her head and bit hard into his hand. That foolishly gluttonous action, like a little piglet, left the person opposite her both pained and helpless. He quickly pulled his hand back and shook his head with a sigh. "She's really starving out of her mind." Then she suddenly murmured drowsily, "Why is the house spinning like this?" Seeing her about to fall forward, he cried out in alarm, "Careful," and quickly reached out to catch her, asking with concern, "Are you all right?" Their posture at that moment, together with the atmosphere around them, was already extremely ambiguous and romantic, until the person beneath him spoke in dissatisfaction. "Stop moving around so much. The swaying is making me dizzy." I feel cold too." through Nguyen Bao's blurred vision. The person before her looked no different from an ancient work of art. Hearing that, he slowly explained, "I'm not the one swaying. You have a fever. Be good. Get up quickly. Wrap yourself in more clothes. You need to sweat it out. Once you sweat, you'll be fine." Hearing this, Nguyen Bao only replied vaguely, "I'm so sleepy." Then she leaned against the person beside her and obediently closed her eyes, falling asleep. The next morning, Pho Duc helped her out of the hut, saying as they walked, "The rain has stopped. We need to hurry back." Hearing that, the person beside him looked at the large puddle blocking the way ahead and frowned. "How are we supposed to get across this puddle?" Suddenly, the other person stepped forward and took the initiative. "Get on. I'll carry you." Hearing this, the person behind him hurriedly refused, "No need, I can." But before she could finish, she sneezed again. Seeing this, he frowned and lectured her seriously. "You just recovered from your fever, and you want to step into cold water? Do you want to get sick again? Come on." At this point, she could no longer refuse. She could only obediently climb onto his back and softly answer, "Right." He slowly carried her forward, each step steady as he crossed through the puddle. Elsewhere, O Quan Viet wearily asked, "Still no sign of them?" The servant beside him hurriedly replied, "The rain was too heavy and it was too dark." Hearing this, he said irritably, "Now that the rain has stopped, I'll go search again." Suddenly, another servant spoke up hesitantly, "Young master, you've been searching all night." Before he could finish, the person beside him cried out in shock, "Miss has returned." Hearing that, he jumped up in delight and shouted, "Elder sister, are you all right? I've been looking for you all night." Just then, Pho Duc rode up with her on horseback. Seeing her appear, Nguyen Bao cried out in surprise, "Quan Viet, why are you here? What could have happened to me?" Pho Duc was here, wasn't he? But when he saw the calm smile on Pho Duc's face, O Quan Viet immediately ground his teeth in annoyance and said, "Then I really must thank Mr. Pho." Hearing that, Pho Duc patted his chest and replied, "Taking care of Miss is naturally my duty." She could not help nodding in satisfaction, but the person below merely let out a disdainful snort. O Quan Viet hurriedly raised a hand and continued, "You must be hungry, sister. There's already hot food and soup prepared in the carriage. Let me help you down so you can eat." Hearing that, she could not help sighing inwardly. Raising troops for 1,000 days really was for a moment like this. The moment he finished speaking, Pho Duc unexpectedly wrapped an arm around her waist and said, "Miss, let me help you." Once she was set on the ground, she said cheerfully, "Thank you," while the person standing beside them was so angry he could do nothing. Meanwhile, the men in black who had attacked Nguyen Bao had already been beaten black and blue. They were tightly bound and sprawled all over the ground. Then a voice sounded, "These people are all hired swords from the Jianghu." After that, O Quan Viet pointed toward the foot of a tree and said with a frown, "That one is the man who hired them. We just caught him, so we haven't had time to interrogate him yet." Hearing this, the person beside her looked over and could not help asking, "What is that pile of mud?" At once, he splashed a bucket of cold water straight at the man and said irritably, "He chased after you into the woods. His horse must have been spooked, so he fell head first into a mud pit. Our men were the ones who fished him out." But when she got a clear look at the mud-smeared face, she covered her mouth in shock. "Ding ding, so it really was you." Then again, no one else could pull off something this stupid. Hearing that mockery, he gnashed his teeth in fury. Nguyen Bao, how is your life so damned hard to take? At that question, she put on a helpless look and replied, "My fate is so tough, it kills husbands." Didn't you know that long ago? Otherwise, why would you have been so scared that you broke off the engagement at once? Suddenly, he played dirty and spat straight forward. However, Pho Duc immediately stepped in front of her to block it, his voice full of disgust. "So filthy. Miss, you should stand farther away." At the same time, the sister-obsessed O Quan Viet roared angrily, but the man only spat out a contemptuous pah. She, on the other hand, merely said calmly, "Fine, let me go change first. Then I'll ask him a few more questions." On the other side, Quan Viet could not hold back any longer and slammed a punch into Trin Tin's head, cursing loudly, "You dog, are you tired of living?" After everyone temporarily withdrew, she kept a certain distance and asked, "Who sent you to kill me? Tell me, and I'll let you go." But the more he listened, the more hate-filled he became, and he screamed like a madman, "Do I need someone else to order me to kill you? You ruined me so completely. How could I ever spare you?" But Ongwen Bao only calmly adjusted a stray lock of hair and replied evenly, "You're allowed to scheme against me, but I'm not allowed to strike back? I really shouldn't have bothered asking you anything. You truly are an idiot. You were used as a disposable pawn and still know nothing. How could I possibly expect you to know anything useful?" Hearing that, he seemed to go mad and shouted, "Ongwen Bao, what do you mean by that? Who are you calling an idiot?" Those words made her think to herself, is that really the point here? He's so stupid it hurts my eyes. Then she turned and patted Oquan Viet on the shoulder. "I have nothing more to ask. Quan Viet, take them back and hand them over to the authorities, though I doubt they'll get anything out of them." Suddenly, the person beside her tugged on her hand and said with a frown, "Sister, I don't want to go back. Let me come with you." Hearing that, she said helplessly, "I can't bear second mother's wrath. You should go home and focus on your studies." But his eyes filled with tears as he pleaded, "The moment I heard you were in danger, I rode here at once. Aren't you touched at all?" That made her frown. She patted him on the shoulder and said, "Very touched, but that's a separate matter. Either go back on your own, or I'll have you tied up and sent back. Choose." With that, she turned and walked away without a second thought. Suddenly, he widened his eyes in panic and shouted, "Sister, you're far too heartless." In the end, Oquan Viet still went back reluctantly. After seeing him off, she immediately staggered and nearly lost her footing. The person beside her quickly caught her. "Oh no, are you all right? You had a fever all night. At a time like this, you should be lying down and resting, not forcing yourself to stay strong in front of young Master Quan Viet." At that moment, Ongwen Bao said tiredly, "If he saw I wasn't well, wouldn't he have been even less willing to go back?" Pho Duc then said, "In your condition, you can't continue riding. Let's first find an inn in the nearby town and rest for a day." Seeing how concerned he looked, she suddenly laughed and remarked, "The way you fuss over me is exactly like second mother." At the inn, she soaked in hot water and let out a long, relieved breath. I'm alive again." Suddenly, she began to think to herself, Trin Tin is stupid, and this assassination attempt also feels rather sloppy. Whoever is behind it probably never expected it to succeed. In other words, he never really intended to take my life. Then what was the point of this assassination? So troublesome. I can't figure it out no matter how much I think about it. Forget it. At least for now, my life isn't in danger. I'll just deal with it as it comes. Just then, there was a knock at the door outside. "Miss, may I come in?" She had already changed clothes and was drying her hair as she replied, "Wait a moment." As soon as the door opened, he came in carrying a bowl of steaming medicine and said gently, "I asked the innkeeper to make ginger soup. Drink a bowl to drive out the chill." Hearing that, she muttered gloomily, "If it's that stuff, just set it down. I'll drink it later." Seeing her reaction, he seemed to understand and added, "I told the innkeeper to add plenty of brown sugar. It's sweet. Good medicine is bitter, and Miss is no child anymore. So hurry and drink it." As he spoke, he pressed her down by the shoulders into a seat. At that, she screamed inwardly without end, "I hate ginger. Just the smell alone makes me feel like I'm about to faint." Then she said with some hesitation, "I should still wait a bit." But the person beside her refused flatly with a frown. "No." Then he kept coaxing her, praising her nonstop. "Miss is so good." Meanwhile, she picked up the bowl of ginger soup and gulped it down, then quickly wiped her mouth and cried out, "It's so spicy, I'm dying." Pho Duc quickly brought over a cup of water. "Miss, have some water and rinse your mouth. I'll dry your hair for you." Hearing that, she hurriedly refused. "Huh? No need." But the person behind her had already taken up the towel and begun drying it. His tone left no room for argument. "Don't move." That action stirred an indescribable feeling in her heart, and she could not help asking, "Pho Duc, you treat me this well. Could it be you have designs on me?" The moment he heard that, he froze for an instant. Then Ongwen Bao spoke again, her voice hesitant and probing. "Pho Duc, do you have feelings for me?" Hearing that, her hand instinctively tightened around the teacup she was holding, while uncertainty slowly spread through her heart. Then she forced herself to say, "Do you really?" The person behind her hesitated for a moment, as if weighing every word. Then he curved his lips into a smile and said, "Do I, or don't I?" Startled, she turned to look at him and asked again, "What?" But he only gently pressed the towel over the still damp hair of the person before him, his movements slow and careful, before speaking in a low voice. "Mrs. Question really is a hard one to answer. If I say no, then it would make Miss seem self-deluded. If I say yes, then it would make me seem not to know my own place." Those words made her spirits suddenly sink, as though a bucket of cold water had been poured over her. After a long silence, she said quietly, "Perhaps I really was overthinking it. You're a good person. I sincerely hope your future will be splendid. Watching that slender back turn away, Faux Duke's mood was no better than hers. After quite some time, his low voice sounded from behind her. Does liking this mean I can't still have a splendid future? She froze at once, clutching the towel on her head tightly, as if to hide the turmoil in her heart. Then she forced herself to sound casual as she replied, "Everyone knows that I, Ongwin Bao, was born with the fate of bringing ruin to my husbands. I've been engaged 4 times, and all 4 suffered because of me." But suddenly, a warm hand lightly touched her from behind, and his voice softened with it. Isn't it also possible that their fates were too frail, and that they simply couldn't bear the great fortune that belongs to Miss? When people fall ill, they tend to think too wildly. Once your hair is dry, go to sleep for a while. When you wake up, all your worries will be gone. But suddenly, she brushed his hand away. Her voice carried a trace of deliberate mockery. As expected of a scholar, the way you comfort people really sounds convincing. Hearing that, the person behind her hurriedly explained, his tone even more sincere. "I'm not comforting you. It's because I know my miss has always done good and accumulated virtue. You must be someone of great merit and great fortune." Those words moved her deeply. Her nose stung, and she said, "Saying such touching things all of a sudden really makes me want to cry. It really must be because I'm sick that I've become this fragile." Hearing that, he could only force a smile and reply, "Yes, yes, yes. It's all this illness's fault. Then I'll take my leave first and won't disturb Mrs. Rest any longer." However, not long after he left, tears quietly welled up at the corners of her eyes. Her mind kept replaying what he had just said. "Miss, you must believe that you too can be happy. Do I really deserve that?" When I asked whether he had feelings for me, what answer did I actually want? No or yes? At the same time, he stood outside with his back against the cold wooden door, his expression just as heavy as hers. In Tongjiang Prefecture, the rest of the journey passed without further trouble. A month later, Nguyen Bao successfully arrived in Tongjiang Prefecture. At that moment, a figure hurried out to greet her, asking as she ran, "You must be the eldest miss of the O family?" Seeing the person who had come out, Nguyen Bao lowered her head in greeting. "That's right. May I ask how I should address you?" Hearing that, the woman quickly smiled and introduced herself. "Miss is too polite. Just call me Madame Tong. Old Madame Tan is in the weaving room. I'll take you there." With that, she turned and walked inside, calling as she went, "Old Madame Tan, Miss O has arrived." The old Madame Tan she referred to as the owner of Tan Luke Weaving Workshop. She had improved the cotton gin, the spinning machine, and the loom, and had even changed traditional weaving techniques. Seeing someone come in, she smiled and said, "I have no fine tea here, nor any proper reception room, so I'm afraid my hospitality is lacking." Hearing that, she smiled and replied, "Not at all, not at all. I didn't come here for tea. I sincerely came to learn from you and seek your guidance. Please don't hold back in teaching me, old Madame Tan." At that moment, the old woman raised a hand and gently touched her face, full of emotion. "So alike, especially this look in your eyes and the way you speak. You are exactly like your grandmother when she was young." Hearing that, she could not help being startled. "Huh, you knew my grandmother?" Old Madame Tan then slowly began to explain, "Didn't you know your grandmother was also from Tongjiang Prefecture? Back then, when she was getting married, I was the one who helped her into the bridal sedan." At the same time, the mood of the person opposite suddenly dimmed, and her voice softened. "Not long after I was born, grandmother passed away. Grandfather was afraid I'd be upset, so he rarely mentioned her." Old Madame Tan lowered her head and said softly, "Yes, she is gone. Let's not talk about sad things anymore. Let me introduce these tools to you." Hearing that, she could not help thinking to herself, why didn't grandfather tell me that he and this old Madame Tan were old acquaintances? For this business partnership, I didn't need to negotiate at all, did I? Once inside, old Madame Tan quickly introduced each item with great enthusiasm. "This is the treadle loom I improved. It saves a great deal of labor and greatly improves efficiency. And this is brocaded twill cloth, made with color-matching techniques, woven directly from the jacquard loom with silk thread." Hearing that, her eyes immediately lit up with interest. "So it could be woven directly like this? That's wonderful. Once this fabric reaches the market, people will definitely fight to buy it." Yet inwardly, a calculating smile spread across her face. "When that time comes, will I still have to worry about the cloth workshop's business? This bet is as good as won." Then suddenly, Ong Gwyn Bao took the hand of the person before her and said warmly and earnestly, "Granny, you're basically my own grandmother. You absolutely must supply this fabric to my cloth workshop. The price is negotiable." Seeing her serious yet adorable expression, old Madame Tan burst into hearty laughter. "This money-loving look of yours is exactly like your grandfather back then." Back at the O residence, the quiet atmosphere was suddenly broken by a bright, lively voice. "Grandfather, I'm back." Hearing that familiar call, O Fu Hong could not help asking in delighted surprise, "Gwyn Bao, you're back? Did you gain anything from this trip?" Hearing that, she quickly stepped forward and presented him with a carefully preserved wooden box. "Old Madam Tan told me to give this to you." The moment he saw the box, his expression instantly turned solemn and thoughtful, and his voice carried barely concealed emotion. "Yes, this is it. This is it." Seeing his unusual reaction, she could not help growing suspicious and asked with a frown, "You specially sent me on this trip. Could it be the real purpose was this item?" Hearing that, the person opposite hurriedly shook his head and denied it. "Of course not. As for that," then, as if suddenly remembering something, he changed his tone and probed, "Is there anything you want to say to grandfather?" Hearing that, she put on an innocent, clueless expression. "Is there something I need to say? Oh, are you asking what I learned from old Madame Tan? There's too much to list. Growing cotton, picking cotton, ginning cotton, spinning thread, dyeing, weaving cloth. In short, I've definitely won that wager. So don't even think about forcing me to marry someone now." Hearing this, he suddenly glanced at Pho Duc standing behind her and lowered his voice to whisper, "What is going on here? You still haven't told the girl your identity?" When asked that, Pho Duc answered calmly, "A good thing is not harmed by waiting. I don't want to be too hasty. I want to wait until everything is settled and properly arranged before I tell her." Hearing that, O Fu Hong nodded in agreement. "That's fine. It's good that you've thought it through yourself." Meanwhile, the person standing between them grew even more confused at their cryptic exchange and quickly cut in. "Were you two talking around like this? Are you hiding something from me?" Hearing that, he hurriedly covered it up. "How could that be? You just returned from a long journey. You must be tired, right? Go rest first. Once you've recovered, grandfather still has other work to assign you." Suddenly, she turned to look at Pho Duc and asked him directly, without the slightest evasion, "Pho Duc, are you planning to say goodbye to me and go take the imperial examination, but you're afraid that if you fail, you'll lose such a good job? It's all right. Just go without worry. You can come back whenever you want." Hearing that, the other party could not help laughing. "I have never once thought of leaving Mississippi." Receiving that answer only made her more suspicious, and she pressed on, "Then what is it exactly that you can't tell me right now?" Suddenly, O Fu Hong gave a dry cough and cut in. "Gwyn Bao, you're tired, aren't you? Go rest first." Hearing that, she did not stubbornly linger and only said, "Fine. If you won't say it, then don't." But right then, Pho Duc grabbed the hand of the person beside him, startling her. Then he looked at O Fu Hong and said seriously, "Master O, I think Nguyen Bao also has the right to know the truth. She is much stronger than you think." Hearing that, she widened her eyes in confusion. "Know what? Does it have something to do with the copper box I brought back?" At that, O Fu Hong lowered his head and said in a heavy voice, "Fine. Pho Duc is right. This concerns your parents, so you have the right to know the truth. I'll call Okan and your second mother over." After a while, he returned and continued, "This is what I want to show you." The wooden box was slowly opened, revealing an imperial edict inside. Ongwin Bao covered her mouth in shock and blurted out, "This is an imperial edict? The current emperor obtained the throne illegitimately. This is the late emperor's decree of succession, the very thing he has been searching for all this time. He knew the late emperor and I were very close, so he guessed it might be in my hands. That's why he planted many people in my residence. But I had already sent it away and entrusted it to someone reliable. His spies failed to find the item, but they discovered that your mother was pregnant. So he ordered O Bao Hong to kill your mother." After hearing this, her hand clenched so tightly it turned pale, and her voice dropped. "Actually, I knew. I always knew he forced my mother to her death. I just never imagined that she hadn't taken her own life, but had been murdered. After mother died, I overheard the conversation between you and father. I also knew that the death of my first fiancé was his doing. And the 3 men who were engaged to me afterward were all his people. He wanted the O family's wealth, but he didn't want his own reputation tarnished. So he planned to use my marriage to seize the O family. That's why I ruined my own reputation and spread word that I would never marry anyone." Hearing this, the corners of the old man's eyes gradually grew wet, his voice trembling. "I truly thought I had protected you well. I never expected. You really are worthy of being my granddaughter, O Fu Hong's granddaughter. She hurriedly raised a hand to wipe away his tears and comfort him. "Grandfather, you already did very well. I only arranged for Trin Tin to fall off his horse. The other two running into trouble. That was your doing, right?" Hearing this, he immediately shook his head in denial. "Not me. Those two met with misfortune because of him." His words startled her, and she turned to look at Fo Duk. "You? Who exactly are you?" Fo Duk only replied calmly, "Miss, please stay calm. Let Master O finish first." At the same time, O Fu Hong slowly stood up, his voice turning grave. "This is a secret edict written by the late emperor on his deathbed and smuggled out through the eunuch at his side. True Chao Dan usurped power and stole the throne, murdered his father and brother, and framed the entire loyal Ngu family. A traitorous villain like him deserves death at everyone's hands. And this medical record contains the detailed cause of the late emperor's death. He was poisoned." Hearing this, Okan, who was standing nearby, could not help speaking up anxiously. "If we have these, then we can prove the Ngu family's innocence, right?" But Ongwin Bao slowly shook her head in rebuttal. "But now he is the emperor, while we are only merchants. If these things were useful, grandfather would have taken them out long ago. What made you decide to reveal them now?" At those words, O Fu Hong suddenly fell silent. After a moment of silence, he finally began to speak slowly. "It's a long story." Hearing that, Ongwin Bao folded her arms and replied decisively, "Then tell it briefly." Suddenly, a soft laugh broke the heavy atmosphere. Tan Ham, standing nearby, spoke leisurely. "The main reason is that man's life is almost at its end." Hearing that, she frowned in confusion and asked, "At its end? But isn't he only just past 40? Only then did the old man continue thoughtfully, a trace of coldness in his voice. "O Bao Hong got hold of an immortal elixir that invigorates the body. How could he not offer it to his prince? He may look strong now, but inside he's already rotting away. More importantly, the only one who can currently bear the burden of being crowned prince is the very first prince he always despised the most. When the current emperor was still a prince, he married the eldest legitimate daughter of the Ngu family as his princess consort. A year later, Ngu Onda gave birth to a child, the present first prince. After the fall of the Ngu family, Princess Consort Ngu was thrown into the cold palace, and the first prince, hated by the emperor because of his mother, was sent there with her. After ascending the throne, the emperor filled the harem with concubines, yet had very few children, and the rare princes who were born were all sickly and frail. 2 years ago, Ngu Onda died of illness in the cold palace, and only then did the emperor finally remember this first prince who had been raised there. But at the time, the first prince looked somewhat bewildered and said hesitantly, "This son has never studied." Faced with such ignorance, the emperor was both disappointed and relieved. He treated the first prince as only a last resort. At the same time, relying on the effects of the immortal elixir, he kept trying to sire more children, hoping that some young beauty would bear him a healthy, intelligent prince. There are still many eunuchs and palace maids in the palace who remain loyal to the late emperor. And in the army, there are also many officials who resent the injustice done to the Ngu family. And over the years, Obao has secretly bought over many officials as well. The person beside him then added in support, "It wasn't for nothing that he trusted me and often summoned me into the palace. They gave me the perfect chance to contact people inside." He probably never imagined that the grand eunuch he trusted most only wanted revenge for Princess Consort Ngu and the late emperor. Only then did O Fu Hong continue in a deep voice. "A petty man like him would naturally never understand the Ngu family's place in the hearts of the soldiers. The current commander of the Imperial Guards has endured humiliation all these years for only one day, to overturn the case and clear General Ngu's name." After hearing all of this, Ongwin Bao covered her mouth, her face pale, her trembling voice stammering. "So, you're planning to force him to abdicate, aren't you?" The other party sighed helplessly in reply. "Grandfather originally wanted you to stay far away from this whirlpool before everything began, but you were so determined not to marry anyone." Then Ongwin Bao suddenly turned to Fo Duk, her eyes full of vigilance as she questioned him. "So you really are one of grandfather's people. What happened before, when grandfather blocked my way in the street, had all been arranged in advance too, hadn't it? And afterward, you deliberately approached me as well, didn't you?" Hearing this, Fo Duk hurriedly shook his head in denial. "No, Nguyen Bao, listen to my explanation first." O Fu Hong only lightly patted his shoulder to reassure him. "He's not one of my people. This is also a long story, so let him explain it to you slowly." Come, we also need to go take care of proper business now. With that, he left with Okan. Before leaving, Tonham turned back and smiled at her as he reminded her, don't sulk for no reason. Hear him out properly. She tilted her head slightly, puzzled. But once everyone had left, the room suddenly became strangely quiet, and the two of them met each other's gaze. Leaning against the table, Ongwin Bao folded her arms and looked at him with a frown, speaking coldly. Explain. Fo Duk did not avoid it and slowly admitted, you're right. I did approach you on purpose, but it wasn't arranged by Master O. I proposed it myself. Hearing that, she looked as though struck by lightning, her voice full of shock. What do you mean by that? Fo Duk lowered his head and explained in a steady voice. It means that it's true I deliberately approached you, but it's also true that I've admired you for a long time. As he said this, he suddenly took her hand, making Ongwin Bao freeze in surprise. You've admired me for a long time? He looked at her with gentle eyes and answered, now, I'm the first prince's study companion, but from beginning to end, I have always been Mrs. Man. She lowered her head and looked at the object in his hand in confusion. This is candy. The man opposite her nodded and continued. Back then, Miss also gave me a piece of candy just like this. Don't you remember? At once, old memories flooded into her mind. I have candy. Are you willing to come with me? His voice sounded slowly, full of nostalgia. At that time, I thought I had seen an immortal child descend to the mortal world. In truth, that's not an exaggeration. My fate really did change because of you. At that moment, Ongwin Bao suddenly understood everything, her eyes trembling as she blurted out, your little Fugue? Seeing that she remembered, he immediately smiled brightly and replied, that's right, it's me. General Ngo said the name you gave me sounded like a puppy's name, so he changed it for me to Fo Duk. Hearing this, she was completely stunned, then suddenly burst into tears. I thought you had died the day the Ngo family was exterminated to the 3rd degree. All these years, I've always regretted it. If I hadn't taken you in back then, maybe you would have lived a hard life, but at least you would have kept your life. Wah! Seeing her cry, he panicked and awkwardly tried to comfort her. Don't cry, don't cry. Maybe my fate wasn't finished yet. Princess Consort Ngu must have sensed something at the time, so she asked General Ngu to find a study companion for the first prince. And so, I entered the prince's residence just before the Ngu family met disaster. And because of that, I was lucky enough to survive. Hearing that, she choked back sobs and asked, so all these years you've been by cousin's side. The two of you must have lived very hard lives. As Fo Duk gently wiped away her tears, he answered softly, no, we've lived all right. Many people in the palace secretly helped us, and besides, we both know a bit of martial arts, so no one dared bully us. Your aunt did not die of illness. She took her own life. He suddenly recalled the image of that gentle woman instructing them years ago. I've only clung to life until now for the sake of revenge, so don't cry. You only need to avenge me and reclaim this blood debt. She used her own death at precisely the right moment to bring the first prince back to that tyrant's side. Hearing this, Ongwin Bao asked softly in a trembling voice, we will definitely win, won't we? Fo Duk looked at her and answered firmly, I can't be 10 parts certain, but I believe justice will prevail. Even if he is the emperor, he still has to pay for the monstrous crimes he has committed. 10 days later, on the emperor's birthday, a grand banquet was held in the palace for all the civil and military officials. Fu Hong, Okan, and Tonham had all changed into formal attire, their appearances solemn and composed. As an imperial merchant, Fu Hong, together with the second madam and Princess Tan Nan, naturally had to attend the banquet. It was protocol that could not be avoided, but this time they were not going to offer birthday congratulations. They were going with the resolve to risk everything, prepared to send the emperor on his final journey. At that moment, Ongwin Bao stood in the courtyard, tightly gripping the hand of the person before her eyes full of worry and unease as she called in a trembling voice, Second Mother. Seeing this, the woman gently patted her hand in reassurance, her expression as gentle as ever. Don't worry, go back and wait for us with peace of mind. At the same time, Fo Duk also stepped forward and said in a deep voice, just rest easy. I will definitely bring them back safely. Only then did she feel slightly more at ease, and she obediently nodded in response. Seeing this scene, the person beside them could not help laughing in amusement. Oh my! Then the two carriages slowly rolled away into the night, the sound of the wheels gradually fading into the distance, as though carrying away all the unease in the hearts of those left behind. That night, beneath the pale crescent moon, inside the lonely little courtyard, she paced back and forth in constant worry, her steps disordered, her heart restless and unsettled. She muttered, "It's already so late. Why is there still no news?" Seeing this, dying Chu Man hurried forward, took her hand, and comforted her in a gentle but certain voice. "It's all right, Mississippi. No news is the best news." Suddenly, a loud pounding sound came from outside. The knocking on the door grew heavier and more urgent, making both of them jolt in alarm. When she reached the door, Diane Chu Man instinctively stepped in front of Ong Nguyen Bao before raising her hand to open it. O Quan Viet rushed straight in, his face pale with urgency. "Sister, this is bad. Something's happened. Come with me quickly." Seeing who had come, she cried out in surprise, "Quan Viet," but he had already grabbed her hand, trying to pull her away, while she stood motionless, not moving at all. Seeing that, the person before her could not help freezing, his voice slowing down. "Sister." But Ong Nguyen Bao only lowered her head, her gaze darkening as she asked quietly, word by word, "Where do you want to take me?" "To use me as a bargaining chip against grandfather and the others." "So what should I call you? Younger brother, or the emperor's illegitimate son?" At those words, the person opposite her was completely stunned, his voice stammering, "Sister, I..." But she did not let him finish and continued in a voice so calm it was cold. "Did you think, with your identity, that second mother and grandfather didn't know? Otherwise, why do you think they kept delaying putting your name into the family registry?" Hearing this, the other party finally asked in confusion, "Then when did you find out?" Only then did Ong Nguyen Bao raise her head. Her eyes were much clearer now as she slowly said, "I could never figure out what purpose Trin Tin's attempt to assassinate me served. It was only after I learned that the person behind it was the emperor that I understood. The purpose wasn't to assassinate me. It was for you to save me, so I would be moved and urge grandfather to enter your name into the family registry. That way, you would be able to inherit the O family smoothly." After hearing that, O Quan Viet could not help asking in return, "If I said that I came here tonight not to kidnap you, would you believe me?" Without hesitation, she replied at once, "I would. Grandfather and second madam clearly know your identity, but they never exposed you. I think not alerting the enemy is one reason, but more importantly, you've never done anything to harm the O family, have you?" At that moment, he gave a faint smile, his eyes unusually gentle as he looked at her, his voice dropping lower. "I just couldn't bear to leave, elder sister. I want to be alone with you for a while and say goodbye properly. It seems that can't happen now." Hearing this, she lowered her voice and asked, "Why can't it? I think second mother and grandfather wouldn't want you to leave without saying goodbye either. Come in and wait a while with me." Hearing that, he was visibly surprised and asked hesitantly, "They still want to see me?" But she did not answer right away. She only took his hand and pulled him into the room, her voice slow but firm. "No one can choose the family they are born into, but they can choose what kind of person they become. You were only born badly, but you were a good child." Seeing this, Diane Chu Man, who was standing nearby, hurriedly spoke up, "I'll go make a pot of tea." At that moment, Pho Duc came running forward in alarm. His steps hurried, not daring to slow down for even a moment, anxiety churning inside him. "Nguyen Bao, nothing must happen to you." At that moment, he suddenly remembered what the maid had said earlier. Young Master Quan Viet is currently in the eldest Miss's room. The more he thought about it, the tighter his chest felt. His hand unconsciously clenched the sword in his grasp. Then he rushed straight inside. "Nguyen Bao, are you all right? Oh, Quan Viet, don't hurt her. Anything can be discussed." But Ong Nguyen Bao smiled calmly and said, "Pho Duc, I'm fine. Quan Viet didn't do anything to me." The person beside her also hurriedly explained, "I only came to say goodbye to elder sister." She stepped closer and asked softly, "How are things on your side?" But the sword in the other man's hand slowly lowered, and he hurried forward and pulled her into his arms. His trembling voice carried obvious relief. "Thank goodness. You're really all right. That's wonderful. Do you know how frightened I was when I saw O Quan Viet's horse at the gate? That action made her heart race and her breathing turn uneven. Her face flushed red, and she quickly spoke to comfort him. "It's all right now, it's all right. Aren't I standing here perfectly safe?" Suddenly, the sound of someone clearing his throat rang out. Ahem, ahem, and she abruptly came to her senses. Turning her head, she saw O Fu Hong. Okan and Tan Ham had already stepped inside, and she hastily pushed the man in front of her away. Grandfather only smiled kindly and said, Our family ought to have some happy occasion after all these years. Hearing this, Ongwin Bao immediately panicked. Grandfather, I still have that wager agreement. But Tan Ham leisurely cut in. The wager was that if you lost, you had to get married. It never said that if you won, you couldn't marry. The person beside him quickly added, for cousin's happiness, I'm more than willing to admit defeat. But before she could even speak, Fo Duk, standing behind her, stepped forward and saluted solemnly. Thank you, grandfather. Thank you, cousin. Thank you, second madam. Tomorrow, I will bring the betrothal gifts at once. Hearing this, the person beside them was stunned. Don't tell me you already prepared the betrothal gifts too? When asked, he slowly replied, that's right. I've been preparing them all these years. At those words, her face flushed burning red. And at the birthday banquet that day, all the crimes of the current emperor were exposed in full. Faced with the fierce condemnation of the assembled officials, the emperor emeritus, overcome by humiliation and fury, coughed up blood and fainted on the spot. The next day, he issued an edict publicly confessing his crimes to the realm, and at the same time announced his abdication, yielding the throne to the first prince. Clad in dragon robes, the first prince gazed calmly at the man not far away and said slowly, Royal father, rest assured, your son will have the imperial physicians do everything they can to prolong your life. I will certainly let you live a long, long life. Tru Chao Dam's face turned deathly pale. Clutching his chest tightly, he ground out through his teeth, but by then, under what circumstances the Emperor Emeritus had bestowed that decree no longer mattered. Elsewhere, the shop manager excitedly announced in a loud voice, the owner has a happy occasion today. All the fabrics in the shop are 60% off. Everyone, come and celebrate with us. The passers-by, hearing this, immediately crowded in. At the same time, back at the O residence, Dying Chu Man came rushing in alarm to report. Young master, Miss has disappeared again. Hearing that, Fo Duk only replied calmly, don't worry, I know where she is. At that moment, in a lively gambling house, a hand slammed down hard on the table. Dressed in a bright red wedding robe, Ongwin Bao planted one foot on a chair and said excitedly, 10 taels of gold on it. Open the wealth gate. Suddenly, a weak, pleading voice sounded beside her. My dear grandaunt, today is your wedding day. How about we stop here for today? All right. But no sooner had the words left his mouth than she glared at him and snapped. What nonsense are you talking? I'm not ready to go back yet. Just then, a deep, warm voice sounded from behind her. Why don't you want to go back? Hearing it, she answered on reflex. Today is my big day, and my luck is blazing hot. Before she could finish, a pair of large, powerful arms swept her right up. The sudden move left her stunned and speechless. But the moment she saw who it was, her face flushed bright red at once. Fo Duk! He slowly lowered his head and murmured by her ear. Today is also my big day. I can't be missing my bride. This is where the story ends. If you enjoyed it, please give me a like and a share, so I'll have more motivation to make more videos. Don't forget to follow for the next episodes. Wishing you all a day full of energy.